Welcome back to Around the Mage Table. This is episode 26. And before we even get started, I got to tell you that we had a rundown for today's episode and it has been thrown in the trash. We were going to talk pugs. We were going to talk all sorts of tips and tricks and ideas, but that is no more. So, hello everyone. How's everyone doing today? Shawnee, you feeling good?
Feeling great, buddy.
Good. Scrapclaw, how about you?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Good. And Technique, how are you doing?
I'm all right, except for Warriors not getting buffed.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about that. Was that in the news?
It wasn't in the news. It was the very last line, and it just said Warriors, and then went on. It just moved
The
on.
top Mythic Plus tank isn't getting buffed. Oh,
We will
no.
waste
No.
no time. We are going
Yeah.
straight into the news. And I'm going to do that by telling a little story. Okay? About a week ago, and today is, we're recording this on a Wednesday. This will go live tomorrow, Thursday. About a week ago, the PTR for 11.0.5 was no more. No one knew why. There was an anticipation that it would be back. Shawnee, I forgot to fix your fucking camera. I'm sorry. And people were on the forums going, well, I need to get on. There's so much broken. There's so much wrong. Even with the event, they were complaining. And we start getting some patch notes. Now, the patch notes that I've listed on screen right now are actually updated. But there were still some asterisks to this. But the long and short of it was that we came into this patch with some understanding that there was going to be some buffs, maybe that weren't making sense, some nerfs that weren't making sense.
Reworks and rebalancing.
I had originally a data sheet, which I'll get to in a second with the updated data sheet, that showed all those. But I remember seeing it for Arcane, for example, that it was going to be a 11%, I think it was, single target increase, and like upwards of like maybe I think it was even 20%. Maybe that was
Frank, it was an 11 to 29% AoE buff.
yes, right. Okay,
That's
so
what it
I
said,
remember
which
that
is-
right. Okay, so
I
it
just
was
can't remember it.
it was insane, right? Now, in fairness, we don't know the story behind those choices, right? We just see the decisions and we go, what the hell? And everyone loses their ever-loving mind, right? Cue in about Sunday night, we start seeing some posts on Reddit and even see it for ourselves, a protest starting to form. Did any of you guys see this happening in the LFR or LFG?
I did not, because I don't look for 12 pugs, so.
I didn't see it because I just wouldn't have looked for that. I'd scan right by it and be like, I don't know what they're talking about. Probably selling keys and continue on.
I didn't see this myself, but in fairness, Sunday nights when I play Baldur's Gate, Monday I was really busy at work. I didn't even get a chance to do like a lunchtime key or anything. And I never noticed it, but I did see that some people were talking about it. I did see like on podcasts, they were talking about it. But, you know, I thought, LOL, I didn't think there'd be this many if we were to go look from the wild. I feel like this is like filtered out. Yeah, it is filtered out. Okay. But you see that they're there, right?
You do a lunchtime key?
Sometimes, yeah.
You not eat?
Oh no, I make a sandwich and I eat while I'm trying to do a 12, and you can be surprised why it goes
this is. What do you even do for work?
Well, it's funny. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to get into that now. We'll get into that later. We will get. That is a topic that will be brought up later. So okay, protests, doom and gloom. People are upset. DKs, arcane mages, they're getting buffed. This is the worst season ever. I can't do 12, so F Blizzard. We start getting some data points as 11.0.2 starts wrapping up. So here's some of those data points as provided by Wowhead, okay? So here's our Mythic Plus participation levels. We can see that effectively, if we were to say, you know, millions of twos, 2.7 million, 3.6 million of fours, and the like, there is a stark contrast between going from 10 to 11 and 11 to 12, and of course anything beyond that. Okay.
I'm surprised there's that much of a contrast between 10 and 11.
You think 11s would be higher?
Yeah, because I feel like 10s and 11s don't feel too different. I mean, what do you think?
Well, my thought is it's not because of the difficulty. I think it's because people get their portals and stop.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. But
Right?
I feel like
I
11
fill my
and 12
vault and
is-
I'm happy.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. That makes sense.
You're not going to win race to 3K by doing 10s, that's for sure.
True.
Now, I think we talked about this on last week's episode. They did increase where you can get the gilded crests from 9 down to 8. But, you know, for the most part, 8 and 9s were being
7
completed.
now.
Wait, I think
Oh.
it's down to 7 now.
Oh, is it?
Somebody fact check that. Put a fact check up on the
Number
screen.
No, it's definitely number 7.
Where you start earning, +4 is where you start ruining or ruined, and 7 is where you start earning hero track.
Say it dropped
8
it
is where you
too.
start winning. No, 8 is where you start winning gilded. 8 and higher now rewards
okay,
gilded.
okay.
Okay. So I
Got
was right again.
You were
Anyways,
right, yeah.
by the way, you guys and your fucking spears don't hit everything. I'm so tilted about that. I should have had my oh god.
Oh, the necrotic wake
Yes,
thing.
necrotic wake thing that you guys gaslit me into thinking. I did. You didn't even watch the episode. Of course you didn't. Why would I fucking
Frank, you're
expect
such
you
an
to?
I was at a wedding
agile
all week.
conversationalist, man. Let's just
Anyways,
keep moving. You're doing great.
Here's
Yeah,
the
you're doing
DPS
great.
diversity. Oh god, that's a little too whatever. But here's the DPS diversity in those keys. Okay, so you know, pretty healthy diversity across the
What the fuck do you
2s and 3s
What does
and
this even
4s.
mean? What
Wait,
does this
zoom in
mean?
again.
This is the DPS specs.
Oh,
Right?
On the left, we have the key level. I see.
He doesn't even look at it before he says, "What does this mean?"
Well, bro, you
I'm trying to tell a story here. I'm trying to tell a story here.
0.2% size and said, "Look at this."
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
see that at the I'm gonna focus on the 10 level. Is that fair?
Mhm. That's fair.
Because there's that drop off from 11 to 12, 13, 14, 15s. As far as I'm concerned, you know, that's like 1,000, not 1,000, probably like 5,000 keys completed in the sea of,
Yeah.
you know, 20 or 30 or 40 million. So 10s, warriors got a decent representation. Paladins, I mean, they kind of have that sliver cut out through all the keys. You know, flavor of the week, flavor of the month. Hunters, let's see, the dark one is survival. Survival's, I mean, it's not as big as some others, but it's
DPS
there.
What? Survival's tiny. MM is the big one.
Is it? Hold on, let's look. No, survival's the
Yes.
darkest
Yeah,
of the
why did
three.
you do that?
MM's
Jesus
this one.
Christ, bro, now I can see it.
Sorry,
that's
Beastmaster's this one.
Hey,
No,
dude.
this is Marksman, Beastmaster, then survival.
Oh, you're looking at 8. I thought we were looking at 10.
Well,
Frank.
sorry, it's the same sliver size. This
Okay.
one's smaller, but this is the same.
But look how many survivals could fit into Rhett, like 10.
No,
It's like 10 to 1.
okay, yes. If you're comparing yourself to something that's the top, of course it is.
Sorry, carry on with your story.
Rhett is beating like Frosty K, right?
Yeah.
And that
At a 10.
is at 10.
Look at the
At
change
10,
when you
at
go
10,
down.
At 10, yes.
Wait, can I give an anecdote about that? Because
Sure.
I ain't never seen a Frosty K and a pug that does like only scraping above the tank. Like I swear, they're the worst spec to pug.
Right, Frosty K, you say?
Yeah, they do terrible. I've heard.
I have the
here's-
inverse reaction.
Yeah, the inverse. Sorry. I've heard from a reputable source that apparently need to pull around a Frosty K to make them work, but I think people just don't know how to press 2 buttons, man. Isn't it just obliterate and frost strike?
My understanding is it's execution of their breath
Of the breath
Sindragosa.
build.
And
Yeah.
if they don't successfully do that, it's all for nothing, right?
You can't keep a couple balls in the air. I mean, I don't know. I don't think.
No, I get it. I turned off from Frost because I felt like that was an unfun game mechanic. I haven't tried it in the new expansion, so that might be better, and I've heard it's better. But I will say that
personally don't.
go on.
Yeah, I don't put them in my keys because every time I invite a Frosty K, dude, they do terrible. But I guess in the higher keys, people know what they're doing.
No, in my experience, it's the opposite. I usually have good luck with Frosty Ks.
Damn, I guess
It's
it's
Rhett that's all
anecdotal,
over the place
I
for
have a
me.
Frosty K in every key I tank. Every
You have
And
an
how's it
unholy
go?
DK.
key. No, never an unholy. I always take Frost.
How does it
Unholy's
go when you have a Frosty K in your group?
Super smooth, man. Frosty
So-
Ks, they yoink stuff, they yank stuff, they breathe on it, they make
Did-
it
you
cold.
know
That's
that-
all he wants out of life is yoinks.
He's talking about A-Bomblin, which is an unholy thing.
So
Okay.
we then have the shamans, who are, I think, more this is not healer, so this is DPS only. More represented than I thought they'd be.
Mhm.
I haven't seen that many myself. Arcane Mage, of course, is pretty big, but again, smaller than Frost, smaller than Rhett. Probably the third biggest. With Warrior, Rogue, and which Rogue is this, by the way? Assassin. And
Astro, yeah.
August starting to climb up big here. But then you got some Warlocks, which as a collective between the 2 specs, it seemed to be Destruction. Sorry, between the 3 specs.
They're all 3.
Yeah, but between the 3 specs, we're getting some good representation along the lines of Shaman, more so than Rogues, more so than Hunters. And then, of course, Windwalker Monk, not that great. But, again, considering it's 1 spec, that's not a terribly unhealthy sliver. Balanced Druids, I I have something to say about balanced druids later, only because of the gaslighting. I'm not unhappy that they're doing well. I'm just unhappy that literally there's one individual that just gaslit the shit out of the community.
They always get what they want, and I love that for them.
And again, Havoc, which is one single spec that's a healthy sliver of a spec, and then of course Augmentation starts to ramp the hell up into the hierarchies. Now, of course, we should take a second. Oops, sorry. We should take a second to say.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, that's
we should take a second. Hold on. We should take a second to say that at the 15 and the 14 keys, those slivers start to dissipate, exponentially.
Yeah, there's like 7 people playing those keys. Who cares?
Yeah, literally, right? Okay, so then here's the healer specs. Okay, I don't need to zoom in on this
diversity.
one. You can just see the whoop right of shamans. To the point where again,
just a touch more, just a little ounce more.
Well, so again, at the 10 level, shamans make up almost 50% of the keys. So yes, shamans are, that is not a healthy balance in my opinion. But is it to say that anyone couldn't do a key at this level? No, of course not. You just might have an easier ticket in and maybe an easier time completing when you are a shaman.
Especially I feel like with last week's affix, dude.
Yes, and honestly, this week's too, because your totems or whatever, and the Thundershock that you can send things up, those are very helpful.
Yeah.
That said, though, I always take this with a grain of salt too, because I feel like some people might be chasing the Fodom, and there would be more representation if they just didn't feel that pressure to play the Fodom. But I can't really say that with definitiveness because.
I would say with that graph, there's a little bit more something to it when 75% of the healers in 12s are shamans. That's crazy.
Well, we can compare that against other metrics in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I think Blizzard would do well to delete Wowhead.
Maybe.
I don't want to talk about that.
Just get rid of it.
So at a level 10, surprisingly, Brewmaster, which I thought would have been a great tank coming into this season, is not doing that well. I heard an anecdote of Trell, who used to be on the Titan Forge podcast, who runs with Tettles and, all them. He had to abandon his Brewmaster because in like 12s and 13s, he was just getting deleted. Prop Paladin doing all right. Now, I will say after this patch, which we'll get to in a second, their DPS is insane, and they feel better, but may not 100% be meta yet.
Can I point out something interesting? I noticed that the Prop Paladin, it shrinks at 12 and 13, and then it goes back up at 14, 15. Yep. So I guess there's a couple Prop Pallies who are, proving everybody wrong.
So I think they were ranked 4th when I last saw it, but there was in the 4th spot of best keys completed, there was a Prop Pally. And again, this only reinforces sometimes where the community will tell us something and say, Prot is dead. You guys remember when I was on the beta, like, oh yeah, dude, Prot's just not there. It ain't happening. Good luck. And just leaves the key. So that's the data from the past, right? We can see that there's representation. I want to go back to the DPS though, because while the only one I really agree with is the healer one. The others I feel like, yes, there's a meta, but it's also just because people are chasing meta, right? What?
I don't think so. I think if you look at at the hierarchies, looking at 11 plus, and the primary tanks are going to be like your druid and warrior, and some death knight in there. I think
more death knight than druid.
Yeah, at the 11
and 10,
and then it falls off. But you're going into these pulls, man. If you don't have a defensive, like a big shield wall or something, when you just on every single pull, you're probably going to get melted right out of the gate. I don't.
It was some packs
that much. Basically every pack. I mean, because everything just chunks you pretty hard. So I don't know. Like with the build we're using for warrior, you've got a shield wall every.
It just gives you a little more.
Pull. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's still more to be said about the healer and tanking meta, anyways, because of the changes they made as a philosophy to 11.0 and beyond.
Last thing I want to say about it. We talked about it when we were talking about this expansion coming in, and you asked me how I felt about the changes coming up for Warrior. And I said, man, I feel fucking great about it because we're already tanky as hell, and they just added damage and didn't really, all the other tanks kind of lost a little bit defensively, and we didn't. Warriors didn't. And they just added a little bit of offensive ability, and we're seeing that now coming kind of full circle where we're tanky enough to survive a lot of these keys and doing really good damage too at this point. So yeah, I'm pleased.
You're in a good spot. You're in a meta spot, and you're not a Fodom chaser
first time
either.
in a while.
Yeah. Okay, so I say all this because I want to call out, one, what is truth versus perception. At the 10s, at the 11s, it's still, I think, a healthy diversity. Yes, it starts widening, especially for DKs. DKs start like flying off the handles. And Shawnee, you and I have talked about this. Ret starts shrinking immensely. I don't know definitively why that's the case, other than I assume it's because their single target's not good enough to push through bosses, so it's worth sacrificing some AoE to get that single target. Do you have any other insight?
And I mean, if you look, what is going up is Evoker, right? So they're like, we're going to drop that Ret, and his different in damage the Evoker is going to make up on for like the Mage and the DK.
Yeah, maybe they synergize better.
Man,
my theory is that also a DK can replace a Paladin pretty easily in a key, because it's like they both bring battle reses, but DK has a bit more control. Like they can yank stuff. They have AMZ.
Range kick.
Yeah, they have a range kick. They have AMZ. They're kind of bringing a little bit more to the table, and when they're also doing more damage, it's like, why would you bring a Ret Pally when you already have a DK?
Yeah.
Like a DK it has the same utility as a Ret Paladin and more. So if DK is doing well in the meta, it makes sense that Ret Pally is
well, my only counter to that, which it's not, my counter's not definitive, but like Arcane Mages have, and you can see Frost is also getting some good representation there, but like we have a very long interrupt, which is effectively 2-for-1 from Ret to Arcane Mage, right? So you lose effectively 50% of your interrupts. And our knockups / I mean, I guess some people might be taking Dragon's Breath, but that's not what I'm seeing on Murloc.io. We have like a little more leeway that it's not worth just that alone for the utility. So like, yes, I get it. DK over Paladin, that makes sense. DK over Arcane Mage, other than, again, the damage profiles, which could totally make sense. Like, I don't think it's just solely that,
Well, I wouldn't compare a DK Mage to an Arcane, or a DK to an Arcane Mage, because they fill different roles. Like the Arcane Mage, like you said, longer kick cooldown stuff. That's like your ranged beefer, and I mean, I feel like a lot where I see a lot of these keys on the high end, and it might be wrong, is that like it's a very melee. Melee is stacked right now in meta representation, and so it's like I think most people want a Frost DK, an Ass Rogue, and an Aug Evoker, or an Arcane Mage.
But is melee stacked? I mean, if you look at it right now, they only represent about 30-ish,
I wanted to send
35%.
you the chart that I sent you, and maybe you can pull it up or something. Is that I think why people get kind of crazy about the meta is because they see charts like that. I just sent you it in the
I don't
around the Mage table one. Is because people. Oh yeah,
sorry. Oh no, just I'm looking at the chart, and that's like the 0.1% title representation one.
Yeah. But my point is that people see this chart and then they form their opinion based on this chart and not on the one we're looking at now. So I think you need to be a little like, the reason why people are like, oh my god, Frost DK, I can't believe they're getting a buff, is because they see such a huge discrepancy. 259 people pushing title there, and then one Demonology Warlock. Why is Frost DK getting buffed? But the chart we're looking at that you have, Frank, is actually more indicative of like the climate, the community, and what most people are going to see at the key levels they're playing at.
Yep. Technique.
Scrap.
Yes.
When was the first time you saw this spreadsheet? This thing we're looking at.
Which one? The one that Frank had, the one that I pulled up,
or the one that we have up right now?
The Wowhead page that we're looking at.
We look at this every week.
Yeah, we kind of look at this.
Who does?
You I look at this podcast. I pull up mythicstats.com.
No, we look at the one you're used to. Technique is the one that is long, that shows just the week.
And it also shows just the top 1,000.
I don't ever look at it. I don't give two fucks, but I could have guessed all of it based on my real life experience in the real world of Warcraft.
But your real life experience ends at the 11 level.
Yeah,
so and also sometimes 98% of the communities.
I know, but you're saying you could have predicted that like elemental and enhancement would have been equally represented as rogues and hunters combined.
I could have predicted that. Yeah.
Well, let me just can I make this a teaching moment to Technique and the viewers? Maybe is that sometimes your real life experience doesn't line up with data points. So looking at the data points before you get angry and go to your Discord and get it shut down is like better. And
'Kay.
yeah,
We're-
maybe that's a cold take.
We're going to transition because like that's exactly we're only on chapter 2 of this story right now. Okay.
Yeah,
We're
it's
not
a
even
long one.
at. We're not even at the launch of 11.0.5. Okay.
And it gets really funny, so stick around.
So, just to recap.
All right, I'm waiting.
PTR
Let's
is
move
down.
on.
People are worried about what they're seeing as far as buffs and nerfs go. I should also add, as just a asterisk on this too, there are some reworks going out. And Scrap, you will talk about the Hunter one that you're a little concerned with in a second. But Elemental
Sure.
and somewhat Enhancement, I don't quite know the full details. Prop Paladin got some changes, but Paladin also in general got changes.
I would say just to butt in, because not a lot of people play it, but Survival Hunter got a significant rework,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Enough to change a lot of your rotation, right? And I want to hold on to that idea of rotation changes for later. Okay. But it is the dawn of 11.0.5. In fact, I think this happens the morning of, and everyone is freaking out because that night before, Wowhead posts the expected DPS changes, okay? I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like now, but first off, I want to shout out to Wowhead. I love this single page, right? It's like, hey, here's a quick summary, and then by the way, here's what, all the estimations are, okay? But I don't want to look at this fully just yet, but I do want to call out, again, we're going to go to Arcane Mage because this one to me was like, wait, what? I think it was like, double-digit buff to single, and as we said, a possible 10 to 30% buff to AoE. I think
I have it up. It's on that chart that I was showing you. The 0.1% title is 11% single target. Yeah, the one I just showed in the chat.
Yeah.
And 11 to 29% AoE, and every other buff on that sheet is 9% or less.
Well, so Frost DK, 8.1 single target, 7.6 AoE. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, you can see what it changed into because the very last minute, money in the bank style, Shauna, you can like that reference, right? You come running in with some last minute nerfs before the patch goes live. And here's what it looks like. So Blood, for some reason, caught a stray. I'm not sure why, but whatever. I'm sure Tanks could go out there and tell me why. But Frost DK, this spell 22%, this spell 22%, this spell 22%, Obliterate by 6%, Breathless Indragosa by 10%, Icy Torrent, Death Torrent by 12%, Mage, Sun Fury 1% to 2%, a 50% overall buff, Lingering Embers 1% from 2%, a 50% overall nerf, Glorious Incandescence, nerf, sorry, reduced by what is effectively 35%,
a third.
Yeah. Mana Cascade now only gives you half a percentage of haste, but was 1%, a 50% nerf. Spellslinger got some changes, but I don't think it hurt them too much. Arcane Blast, your main builder, nerfed by 10%. Barrage, your main spender, nerfed by 10%. To the point where, we're going to take a little story here, Scrap. If you want to interject between them, feel free to. We start seeing things like this. So here's a picture of the Death Knight Discord.
Oh.
You can't see it?
No, I can see it. I can see it.
You can't even get in there because it's so...
They had to lock the server. Now, Scrap, you might know more why. Can you tell us why the server was locked?
Okay, so I love drama, and I love people pitching fits over complete bullshit. And it got... As I understand it, based on what people were talking about in my server, is that it got locked because people were complaining about it so much in the Frost DK and just like burning everything down. I can't remember I think the word was malding or something like that. And then so they put a pause on that. They said, "Hey, we need to close this chat." And then people started going into other channels in the DK. Discord. I don't remember what. One was just like rotation help or something, and they had to shut that one down because it was getting bombarded with people losing their absolute minds. So
Why
you
did
can
they have
say
to
that
shut it down for that reason, though?
because it was just getting
Why
spammed.
can't people just lose their minds?
Well, because it wasn't for that; it was for rotation help.
Well, and on the other side of it, I think it was also people coming in and trolling.
Well, yeah, because it was really because people are losing their minds, and you gotta troll, you gotta strike when
you bring a bag of popcorn in, you get in there, and then you just say one thing to set them off.
Speaking of popcorn, snack of the day.
Yeah.
Speaking of popcorn, I ordered.
Ew, that looks disgusting.
It looks fantastic.
Spice popcorn. I don't like sweet popcorn.
I bought it because it looked good.
Well, we
So-
might have to pull up some of the actual like tweets and posts and.
Well, so
and-
let's keep going. So here's another.
Yeah.
All right. This is from the
my
Mage
favorite
Discord.
one.
All right.
It's so funny.
I'm going to read
Can
it.
I read it? Oh, you read it.
You want to read it? You have to give it a good voice if you read it.
No, you read it. You do a better voice.
The nerf is because of hubris. You people were not satisfied with being a strong spec. You had to rub it in everyone's faces. You're autistic, period. Human nature dictates that if you'll be jealous of your neighbor, if he has more than you, so why do you rub all those insane sims in other classes' faces? Here and all over Wowhead, what did you expect to happen? That shit-ass warlock would look at those numbers and be like, oh, good for them. So fucking dumb.
I love the implication that this is specifically because they're rubbing sims in people's faces. So the WoW devs were like, "No, you have to be nerfed." Like, it was direct action of like,
Don't
these people
talk
are
to your
way
siblings
too,
like that.
dude. They're way
You're in
too up on
timeout.
their high horses. So like, we need to knock them down. Like they're trying to do like fix these people and like enact justice because of sim like gloating.
So another topic we'll need to return to is, do they listen to this?
Let us
dude,
look at
okay,
the
so-
emoji counts. Hang on this post.
A lot of frog emojis.
Look at the emojis. Which one do you most agree with?
The crying,
ruffle?
laughing one.
The weird cat.
Wait, we're not done. We're not done. There's
Beep.
still more story to tell here.
Well, because so hold on. I
Here,
want to
Scrap,
go to your
you
point.
can read this one.
Okay. This was my favorite one because the fact that it was just in like people can't talk about it in their Discord now, so they're talking about it in key like notes. Is that what it is? It's the note in your key, like where you'd say like, "Hey, it's a chill key" or whatever. Okay, this guy said +10 DK and Mage.
He's an affliction warlock. He's an affliction warlock.
Yeah, this is huge, and it's a +10 Mists of Tyrannus Scythe. Okay, and this guy
Use his
said.
key.
Yeah, this guy said, ha 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 ha, fully deserved, you absolute fingerless cretins. Back to the grimy depths where you belong. And I have got to say, fingerless is the funniest insult to a WoW player. It's like, dude, you have no fingers.
Fingerless donkey might have been better.
We've been saying fingerless donkey. We're kind of merging the two, and I think we've created the ultimate WoW insult is calling people fingerless donkeys. But like, I just love this is an art piece. The placement, like where this is happening, like
By a
in
warlock.
the key.
By the warlock that guy literally said. Would you think the warlock was to say good for them?
Yeah, dude. Yes, exactly. The AF warlock, which I like. We have this like in our community. We talk about how warlocks are like really toxic, just as like
I wish
vibes.
I had one good warlock.
Yeah, and this falls in line with that. And yeah, just the fingerless cretins. I mean, this is so funny to me.
And let's just go back real quick one more time. Data, right? So the warlocks are not getting as much play as mages. Like Arcane's obviously inflated at the 10 level,
Like
but it's not
two
bad.
survivals.
It's not. Yeah, it's more than again. It's collectively more than all hunters, right? It's collectively more than all
Or
rogues.
monks, man. There's like hardly any monks.
Well, not by this standard, but anyways. Okay, so fingerless cretins, right? The warlock get the last laugh. And then I see other things. This is just like some other things. So, Mistweavers being really upset to the point where I saw this and I love this tweet, right? So, patch 11.0.5
Hold on. You're missing part of the story. The point is that there was a bug in the game for Mistweaver that was allowing them to get more out of a hero talent than they should have been. And instead of fixing it and like balancing it, they just like removed it. But even before this, it was like when they shipped 11.0.5, because we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. There was a bug in the game where like you had to like log out, go to a training dummy. Like,
you had to stack 9 stacks of something.
Yeah, be summoned, and then you could access the bug. So you had to, and every time you wiped and stuff, you had to log out and log in again.
Isn't that that's not how it currently is? That's how it was?
They hotfixed it.
Okay.
So, but their hotfix was just removing this bug that made it viable, like that made the spec viable, allegedly. I mean, I'm going from.
Yeah, we're not experts on this.
These are the monks who are just complaining in our Discord. Yeah, we're posting bare butt. We're having a bit of a conversation about it, and I'm just like, I'm in the corner listening. But yeah, so we're seeing memes like this.
And this is the next meme, which has the same kind of feel of what the log in, log out. So 11.0.5 Mistweaver raid guide. Open up BattleNet client. Click the gear. Uninstall. Yes, uninstall. Wait for the game to fully uninstall. Now open Steam, type in Satisfactory into the search, add to cart purchase, download and enjoy 11.0.5. Like, yeah. I obviously the discourse is not healthy for a lot of people, but I love when the community rises to the occasion to make a stellar meme, right?
Yeah. Well, this is a reflection of the actual guide that was click the year, like log out, yes, log out, because you actually had to log out and log back in to re-access this bug that was making the spec viable.
Yep.
Which is unbelievable that it shipped
Not
like
unbelievable, completely believable.
Well,
this is Blizzard we're talking about. 2024 Blizzard.
They did put out a blue post saying that, like, wait guys, next week we are going to fix it for realsies this time, for reals, so just play Satisfactory until then, I guess. I don't know what the blue post actually said, but
well, and I mean, okay. I want to go on to the last one, Scrap, which is affecting you, but like part of me is going to say, and I'll even ask the same question for you, Scrap, when we get to yours, is like, okay, but like, is the game unplayable, right? Is Mistweaver unplayable to a degree where some people say, well, to me, playable is only pushing 15s. Okay. To those people, it's unplayable. But we've already established that those people are the minority by a missile shot, right?
Yeah.
What?
Hold on, then. What do you want?
It's your language, man. Just,
Well, I kind of want to cut in a little bit because unplayable, like, yeah, I mean, you could probably do 10s and stuff like that. But like a very real impact is that, like Roar was talking about, is he's on a cutting edge push team as a monk.
Yeah.
And it's like he has to probably sit out for a week. And like
is
losing
that what
somebody
CE stands for?
Cutting edge, yeah.
Yes. Yes, technically. But it's like that kind of affects the whole raid if one of your key players
what does
like
CE
suddenly
stand for?
Broken.
Yeah, no, but hold on. Yes, that is true. I'm sure for some people, but like I'd also, and maybe this is the mindset that why I don't have a cutting edge guild, is like, is it that bad that we have to bench someone at this point in the patch?
Well, if you're pushing cutting edge, yeah.
No, because like at this point,
people are still pushing cutting edge. It's not like that's not happening
but they've nerfed. They've got that new buff that like also nerfs the raid, right? Does it dismantle it so badly that they feel like they have to bench someone? And again, this is an area I have no expertise, so I'm not going to sit here and definitively say yes or no. I'm just like surprised that at this point, like if it was week 2, week 3, yeah, that's like where they're getting super min-maxy and saying I need the perfect composition. But we also see whatever I'm sure there's a Beastmaster out there that's gotten cutting edge at this point. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
We need to confirm that.
I'm sure there's data we can confirm with that, but I wouldn't be surprised, no.
Yeah, right? So like is that more of just a symptom of, again, this whole idea of being bottom chasers, that we have to make decisions that are actually not necessary to make? But again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does happen. So to their point, even if it's not fair, it's still happening. And okay. So that's all I want to say on that. Now, you did bring up some point though, Scrap, because this is also about bugs. Okay, so I'm going to let you cook for a second on this bug right here.
So I will say it did not ship like this, but when the PTR went down, this was the case with Lunar Storm. Lunar Storm is one of the hunter. It's related to one of the hunter talent tree, Sentinel talent tree. And basically what it is, I mean, if you have hunters group, you might hear people complaining to their tank about it, is that we put down a circle on the ground, like when we use one of our
tanks have no idea. They can't see it, by the way.
Nobody can see it but the hunter, so it's effectively fucking useless. It's like it's like a consecrate or a death and decay that nobody else can see, which is useless to the tank. So people have been complaining and saying like, hey, this is really difficult to play around. And it's kind of like in Mythic Plus, it's the tree that you generally want to take. It's changed a little bit, but so there's been rumors that they're going to make it follow the target, which would help because then the tank wouldn't really need to see it, like kind of like how Ravager does. People are familiar with that ability for prot warriors. But here's what they actually did when the PTR had shut down. Lunar Storm has had its visuals updated and now looks like it follows the target around, where the actual effect remains a static puddle on the ground. This feels like a bit of a cruel placebo. And I mean, this isn't funny to me, man. Like this is like the fact
It's like
that
an unfinished solution. I feel like they meant to fix it and said, you know what?
It worse because
Yeah.
then I can't even see.
Out.
It's a sense of
yeah.
security
I'm
that's
going
not
on
there.
vacation. So.
Yeah, and I think what actually happened is that they do intend to make it follow the target around like Ravager, but they didn't fix it enough, and so it would just look like it was, but then it wasn't, which makes it even more broken than it originally was. So they shipped it how it like was before 11.0.5. No rumors about when they're actually going to update it, or even promises to update it or change it. Just nothing at all. This is the last thing we heard about it.
Really brief reference though. Like anyone who's used Ravager knows that the follow effect of Ravager is not very good.
It would be better than nothing.
Sure, but Scrap, you said it didn't actually ship like this. Is that what I heard?
It did not actually ship like this. They ended up reverting it to circle you still can't see. Yeah.
Now in fairness, this is a Wowhead point. Like this is not something that the devs said, right? This is someone who is a writer, saw it, they reported it with a week of information that would have been missing, right? Now again, that's WoW's fault, but you know,
this was in the PTR, like
no, I know, but
experience.
But like it's as we've seen with the Arcane and Frosty K mages, they have till the very last second to make changes. Yeah. And if they don't report it, like this is obviously a problem, but it wasn't a problem. It never was an actual problem for retail. The class guide, which again, they did their job. They weren't doing anything incorrect, but they were warning people about this, but it never actually was a problem. Yeah. Right. And you know, we'll talk more about the bugs later, but like, if I read this and I say, well, the devs did what they were supposed to. They reverted it because it was worse, and they may not have a fix yet, which you could argue I'm disappointed in that, but they did do what they were supposed to do in that scenario.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit disappointing that it seems like they tried to fix it and they just like there's obviously too much on their plate with things being significantly broken with other classes that they're putting it down. But I do kind of wish
firing their fucking devs, man.
Yeah, we can talk
about.
They
could pay the clown at the top of the.
We're gonna talk about that in a moment, like what the suspicions of the community are of like why things are shipping like this. But like I think that it would be cool if they acknowledged like, hey, we are working on this, would be cool. Because I feel like where it is now, they're kind of like leaving a back door for themselves to say, oh yeah, no, it was working as intended. When clearly if they're trying to fix it, it isn't working as intended. That's my opinion.
I'm trying to look this up really quickly, right? But I'm not seeing, and this is very quickly, there have obviously been layoffs for Blizzard, but have any of them come from the dev team? Let alone the Team 2 dev team.
I don't think that's public, and for good reason.
No, they do. They do make them public. They like, for example, last layoffs they said that they're cutting 110 from the Santa Monica location, which is I think directly tied to their mobile, so Warcraft Rumble, and then 140 from the Irvine facility. But I think they were like quality assurance and stuff like that, or GMs of the Game Master, stuff like that. But they list out every single time. No, I don't say every single time because this is, again, a Google summary from AI, but I'm curious. I don't have that answer, but like, I'm curious, has the devs actually been impacted by these cuts, right? So like, let's be careful about making that accusation.
Well, one point you wanted to make, if we're getting to it, because I think it's a good lead in, is like Technique casually threw around this word before we started about these kind of like half fixed weird balancing, like all this stuff. The word that a lot of people go to is lazy. It's like, oh, the devs are being lazy. They're doing these because, I don't know, they just suck, I guess. And you wanted to correct or give an opinion about that.
Let me clarify, because you called my name out, okay? When I said
you're the one who said
I
it.
didn't.
I think he wants to put the words in his mouth.
I didn't mean to say that the devs were being lazy. I mean to say the company's being lazy. And that overarching concept is the company's making requests, demands that can't be fulfilled or aren't being fulfilled by their teams, and they're rolling out anyway. That's lazy. Not to say that the devs themselves, the individuals, are lazy. I don't think that's the same thing.
But is that lazy or is it inept? Like, you could argue that it's like they're proving ineptitude, but laziness.
Someone at the top
laziness would be them saying, we'll do it tomorrow. Anyway.
That's fucking lazy, dude.
Well, laziness is like something that causes ineptitude, right? Like they're inept because they're lazy.
Yeah, maybe. But like okay, so just to go on that tangent for a second. my problem isn't with the criticism. Of course, Blizzard deserves the criticism. I think that it's more nuanced than just simply saying lazy, which that's where I like have the problem. It's like we're using such broad strokes of the brush that like all we're doing is muddying the conversation to actually getting to a better place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I have more on this that I don't want to go into because I still kind of want to like put a bow on the whole story, but there is so much more to it that I think, and this is not just Blizzard. Like, how many times do game devs get all sorts of shit for something that is either decided upon, maybe not even decided by the devs, but decided by, as technical always say, the CEOs and the higher ups that want to make money or whatever. Yeah. Right? Like pay to win decisions that the devs obviously don't want to support, I think 99% of the time. But, you know, we shit on everyone, including the devs. And then again, making accusations of laziness. Because like for me, laziness would be, oh, don't even set a date. We'll just get to it when we get to it. And like, you know, who cares if the patch takes 3 extra months or, you know.
Well, that's not an option though. I mean, they got to get paid and they got to roll it out to get paid. So
well, but that's not the devs that make that decision, right? That's the people who cut the checks. Shawnee, sorry.
Yeah, as you guys talk about all this, I mean, honestly, as we talk about it, I think gamers are the most horrendously critical people of things. And if it shipped on time and had bugs, which are not great, people would be just as mad righty if they'd gotten a note like, hey, this is too buggy. We're working on it day and night. We're still going to have to like be 2 weeks out. People would lose their mind. They would be just as mad and righty. Not saying you in particular. I'm just saying gamers would be like, oh my God, Blizzard sucks. They can't even get their patch out when they promised it. But like, what do you prefer? Would be my question. These people like these bugs like now that they're going to continue to work on, or this patch 2 weeks later, perfect. Because like there's been other Blizzard games like StarCraft 2, which is an old game now, but when it was supposed to came out, it got pushed back like years. Because they had it all done. And
Shadowlands got pushed back, remember?
Yeah, and they're like, we're not happy with this. We're going to push it back. And me personally, I would rather personally have something that's complete and good.
Wait.
But yeah, but there'd be a vast majority of people also that would just like freak out because gamers are hypercritical of the thing they love, but they love it in like a horrible friggin' way.
Well, like I think
I'm sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think what a lot of developers, and not just Blizzard, but a lot of developers need to be prepared to say, fuck you to the community and roll it out when they're fucking ready and do what they think is best without asking everyone to fucking vote on it, dude.
No, I agree with that. Like, I think they would agree with that too. But the question I think comes down to then, what is defined as ready?
Not buggy.
So no bugs.
Frank, I will say I haven't seen this level of like discourse and dissent and like malding from any other patch in recent memory.
Yeah.
Like, and so there's something to that. Like, this is worse than it's been in the past, and the game is just as complicated as it was in Shadowlands.
Well,
like,
more complicated.
Well, it's slightly more complicated. But I mean, okay, like as it was in Dragonflight.
How would it be more complicated?
The talent trees alone.
There's another. There's a hero talent.
That's fair. You're right.
No, but between Shadowlands and now, right?
You're right. I forgot.
The entire hero talent. Oh, and by the way, there's also a new class, a new spec. You know, all this stuff.
Okay. Slightly more. Okay, I'll give you. It's slightly more complicated, but not to this level of like. Was there some load-bearing code or something?
Well,
that got
first off, there's
shifted?
There's spaghetti code of 20 years, right?
Yeah, but that was a problem in Dragonflight as well, and there was not a single patch. Like when we were reflecting on Dragonflight, one of the things that we applauded was that there was not like metas that overtook it when we looked at the charts. And we're seeing that problem in War Within.
Shawnee,
I think people are more upset at this because they're just more upset in life. In general,
I vibe with that point, but I also think there has to be more to it than that.
For sure.
No, but I think some of it, honestly, is people are just more upset everywhere all the time. In general, in life, and they're just
there's evidence in
America.
That.
That's for sure.
I kind of like that theory, actually.
Can I just? Shawnee talked shit about American cuisine last night.
Sure did, and I backed it up, and you were wrong.
No, you didn't back it up. Don't even know.
Oh, wait, whoa.
Wait.
Quick side
say
note
about American cuisine. Dude.
Yeah, this is what Frank said, that there was more Michelin star restaurants in the U.S. than anywhere else for 3 stars. And then when we
I didn't say
Googled
3
it,
stars.
you did. I asked you if you said 3 stars. You said yep. And then when we Googled it, when we
most
Googled
certainly
it,
did not.
you did.
I believe
this
Shawnee.
is why you had me around.
I believe Shawnee.
And when we Googled it, I went through it, and I was right that France actually has more. I didn't pick France as the place. I just said I don't think America has the most 3-star Michelin restaurants. And France was right, and Frank did what? He just said, and carried on with his life once I proved
Logged
wrong.
off.
Yeah,
Very
he was like,
graceful
I'm
in
going to bed
defeat.
early.
I think you're misremembering some facts.
He's going to
You
end his
remember that Frank was
podcast
wrong.
early.
Okay. So
He's on the podcast early.
Come at me about American cuisine, but
I'm not going to
right
argue all the inaccuracies of that because I'm going to move on into the actual podcast here, right?
It's probably for the
Super
best.
true.
But the point is that I want to go back to the question I asked Technique. You said when it's ready to ship is no bugs.
All right, look, man.
You got to
Here
define
we
that.
go
You
with
got to
this.
define that.
Like, obviously,
Yeah.
obviously, nothing's gonna be perfect. Like,
So
out of the gate,
where
but-
is your definition of perfect?
What do you mean? There's
So-
only one definition of perfect, bro.
No, because in the state of letting some bugs through, what is acceptable?
I have
What
one.
is
I have one, Frank.
okay?
I think it shouldn't incur this level of community backlash.
Okay,
Like-
but how do you gauge that?
Oh, God.
You need to be in touch with your community, I think. I think like a big part of the reason that people were so upset about seeing like DK and Arcane Mage getting buffed initially and significantly, like Arcane Mage was getting a 30% AoE buff potentially,
Mhm.
and people got really mad about that to the point that they're absolutely living it up when it turns out that's getting like reverted to a nerf. And like I think it's because like we look at the charts every week and we see that in these keys like above 10 or above 12 or whatever, which is where we want to be, that there's like like thousands upon thousands of people playing these specs at the top, and then everybody else has less than 1,000 players, and it's like, well, maybe we should be lifting these like underperforming specs up instead of like
Sure,
you know,
sure.
yeah, but it's like everybody has access to those charts, is looking at them and arguing about them and talking about them. We talk about the podcast. Everybody's talking about it on
Yes,
their respective podcast, and it's like, how are the devs so out of touch that they don't recognize that people are
Because-
going to hate that they're getting buffed?
Because the devs have tools that we don't as a community, right? And we've already discussed that the problem with those charts is the FODM sways the charts off the bat.
It's true. Yeah,
Right?
it's true.
So, like, the devs have to ask themselves, are we making the game that is chasing a chart that is, in my argument, unobtainable? Because as soon as you... If for example, let's just say Frost DK was 1% better than every other spec, yeah?
Mhm.
That 1% would cause enough of a bell curve at the top of the 15s, 14s, 13s, etc.
Yeah.
Because everyone that's in that space is now switching to that 1% difference. I know it's not 1%, but let's just say for the sake of argument it is, right?
Mhm.
That bell curve is already inaccurate. And now what does Blizzard tune to give, every other spec because again, the Frost Death Knights are showing up 35% of the time. Okay, so first off, like now we don't even have representation of what the difference in DPS is, because we go back to that point I made earlier about like Beastmasters versus the Marksmanship Hunters that we saw on that chart.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why they might be so low is because no one's fucking playing them because they're switching to Marksman, even though Marksman might only have a 5% increase.
Let me give you one point, is that another area that data is available to us is with sims. So we can also sim like a Frosty K with the best gear Dungeon Slice compared to a Beastmaster Hunter. It was the best in Dungeon Slice.
is a flawed sim.
It's the closest thing we have.
Yeah, sims are flawed.
Yep. I outperform the sim on my character, and I don't think I'm that good.
Well, it depends on it's just supposed to give you an idea of like what dungeon. So example, in a Grimmick, like your sim might be higher, but like in a different in Grim Patrol it might be lower.
So then let's follow that train of thought. So you're saying, okay, let's use sims, and we won't even use M+ or we'll just use patchwork, single target, sim, and that's what we bounce around. Is that what we want to go after now?
No,
God,
and I
no.
recognize the trap that I'm weaving myself into, because I was talking to my husband about this yesterday and explaining this drama to him, because I thought it was hilarious and I had to share it with him, like some of these posts that we're talking about. He was saying, well, how is it that hard to balance like Frost Decay or whatever? I'm like, well, because they also have to keep the raid in mind, and it's like balancing around, like there's so many talents and so many hero talents, so many options and so many different encounters that like they may be creating a buff that helps them out in raid but makes them ultra broken in Mythic Plus, and it gets complicated. And I recognize that it's complicated, but we have to also recognize that they clearly did something wrong here based on the level of community backlash.
Whoa, hold on. Did they do something wrong? Because they didn't ship it that way. So, okay, next question. Let's talk about the nerfs to Arcane Mage and Frost Decay.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know the actual answer, okay? But I'm going to ask your opinion. Do you think that was done because of backlash, or do you think it was done that maybe they had that idea in the whole time, but they didn't implement it until the last minute because they were still making their adjustments?
Well, then okay, so I guess the data that was announced on Wowhead was based on what people had experienced on the PTR. It wasn't given by Blizzard itself.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because, okay, so just some background here, right? I'm a dev for Arcane Mages. I'm like, okay, I've got to tune Arcane, and I go into October 16th, which was the day that the PTR allegedly went down. I'm like, okay, this is clearly not finished. I'm not nowhere even close, but I have a week to fix this. And whether I put it up on the PTR or not is irrelevant, because PTR is not necessarily where I'm going to get my data. I'm going to get my data from my experience, my internal tools, and of course maybe the other things like we use like sims and representation, right? But I'm tweaking, and I'm like, okay, well, this is clearly overtuned, but I'm not going to fix it on the PTR yet, because that's not helping me with my data. I'm going to just keep working. Work. I'm working till the very last second, and then I go, cool, I'm done, ship it. I get it in the very last second I possibly can. But because people see the PTR and assume, well, that is what the dev wants, now I'm in this trap that I have to always make sure that I'm getting my work double checked by the community, as opposed to, no, I'm just going to do my job and make sure that I finish it before the patch goes live. Hell, even after the patch goes live, because we have hot fixes.
Yeah. I mean, it does feel like things were rushing out War Within and stuff we talked about in the podcast as well, that like things were shipping unfinished or not working or whatever. And so they announced 11.0.
That load
screen. Like, hey, load screen. So I'm still waiting on the load screen to change, Frank. But like 11.0.5, I mean, we've been thinking about this and looking forward to this, and like there's been guides been going up and articles talking about experience on the PTR. Like they might legitimately need more time in between patches that are going to be significant like this if they can't get it done in time. And I talked to you when we were talking about like the lazy thing, like just off camera and stuff, and I said, like, you work in code shit. I don't know what that is. What did you say you do, Craig?
So no, I work for the product design team, but I work adjacent to devs.
You work adjacent with dev type stuff, right?
Who are in an agile environment.
Adjacent to all the people doing the work.
Like, okay, so laziness isn't the thing. How do you fix this problem? Is it that you throw more people at it?
No. So that's okay. So that's the inherent flaw, right? So okay,
throw more people at it. Let me ask you, Scrap. How many people would help you to achieve a tattoo faster and better?
I'm not a code guy. I'm an art guy.
No.
Right?
That's a good analogy. It's not an analogy. It's a terrible fucking analogy, because the tattoo gets finished and it's done. This game isn't done. It's never finished.
What I'm saying is,
I understand what
Sadiq is saying. Does throwing more people at one tattoo make it better? You can't just like work a piece of art with just a bajillion
needs to work
people.
on one thing.
But it's not a piece of art either.
It's separated into categories.
I get what he's saying, and it does make sense to me. Is that
like, be like, oh, let's all write the book together. It doesn't quite make it a better book.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
I do understand that it's like they have one guy working on this stupid Lunar Storm thing, and it's like having another guy also working on it wouldn't help.
You could argue it would though, because it's not even the Lunar Storm thing is a bug. Let's argue, right?
Yeah.
So there's improvements
intended, allegedly.
Well, no, okay, yeah, sorry. It is working as intended, but I think they acknowledge it's not what they want to be the intention.
But they haven't acknowledged it, and that's what was part of my problem. Is that I think they're leaving themselves a grace.
They gotta get back and fix it.
Communication is definitely something you could critique on that then, right?
Yeah.
Why aren't they telling us this is in our log, or in our intention is to fix it within,
My
as much
theory
time as
on
we can.
it, not to derail, is that there is so they can have this backdoor excuse of working as intended, because they did pull that with us earlier in War Within. So there's less trust, dude, because of the shit they pulled at the beginning of War Within.
So as you were trying to ask earlier, do you want longer windows in between raids?
Well, it's more.
It's usually because the raids the big patches usually come with the raid, right?
I want to be clear on this though. That's not being affected by this, right?
No, Scrap said maybe if they took longer to do it.
No,
it took longer to work on
it.
The 11.0.5.
So this is how it works, right? You aren't given, like, it's not like they're rushing. It's not like they're like, all these patches are going to meet a cadence, which is part of this idea of like the agile environment, right? Where let's just say, I know it's not true because they do adjust it, and that is within their right to do that. I mean, it's done in agile as well. Like every 6 weeks, let's just say, is when they make a cut. Okay, that's my point around the work is never done. It's an ever evolving strand until the day they decide to shut down the studio, right? And so they make a cut, and there's a deadline with that cut, because 1, the customer expects that deadline, and 2, you have to make a cut at some point to say, like, this is what we're going to consider what I'll say stable, right? This is stable. Okay. Now, again, if things are so unstable to the point where we can't ship it, they'll delay, which is, what happened with Shadowlands. And I'm sure they've done it with patches as well. They were wanting to release it, on October 10th, but they pushed it to October 27th or whatever. Right. But they won't necessarily tell us that. Not always. They told us with Shadowlands, but they won't tell us with all the patches because we don't need to know that. But that's their intent. Every 6 weeks or every 2 months or whatever it is, they have like, this is our cut. And everyone is racing to that finish line to say, I'm going to get as much work possible done before that point. Now, there are some devs are better than others. So yes, like some classes may feel like they're better taken care of than others. Of course, no one is, there's not one dev doing all the work. But in the case of, let's say, this Lunar Storm, the dev who is the hunter dev, or maybe even just the survival dev, is saying, okay, I've got 40 bugs, and again, these are arbitrary numbers, but 40 bugs. I've got 18 things I want to tune, and 4 of the things that I need to work on, whatever. And so what they'll do is they'll say, okay, let me try to squash some bugs. Oh, this bug's easy, squash. This bug's easy, squash. Lunar Storm, not a bug. It's an improvement. The community has told me this is what they want, okay? I want this improved. Okay, cool. I would love to work on that. I can see their feedback. I see it's good. I add this to my sprint, right? And then I go, okay, I'm going to start working on this. Whoa, it's actually a lot more complicated than I wanted it to be. I'm trying to get it done before the sprint ends. I'm trying to get it done before they cut the patch. But I didn't. And so what happens is, last week, this is the point where they were at, which is it's buggy and not working as they wanted to. They didn't communicate it. Okay, fair enough. That's a fair assessment. But when the time came to cut, they said, well, it's not done. Revert it back, and then I will come back to it in the next sprint. Okay? And that could be 11.07, or sometimes they authorize to say, hey, you can make a minor change or even a major change sometimes if it's important enough outside of those cuts, outside of the 0.05, 0.07, 0.0 or 1.
Like what they're doing with Monk next week, where they have to make a large
adjustment. Right? Because they're like, whoa, this is big enough to like, and the way it works in my company is like the SMEs, the subject matter experts, come together and say, this is enough of a warrant that we're going to make the exception to go outside of that cut.
What do you think did it for him? Was it that the monks are making memes with nooses that made them think we have to push this one forward?
I would hope that they don't react like that, but maybe they do. We don't know that. We don't know that. Okay. But what I would say is that it's not about lazy. It's not about rushed, right? No, I should say it may be about rushed, but at the end of the day, they have to make that decision to cut, because if they don't, what ends up happening is everything becomes equally as important, and then nothing is equally as important, right? Mm-hmm. Because they don't have this like decision to make of, I have 15 days, so therefore They call it story points, right? Like they assign how much work is going to go into fixing this, and then they like award points to it to say, well, now I know that it would take a lot longer to do this task than to do that task. And some people might have different ways of deciding how they squash those tasks, whatever. So like I want to take that off the table because I don't believe it's the case of laziness and or rushing. I think it's, hey, this is more complicated than it looks. Now, let's address the communication thing for a second. Why didn't they tell the forums like, hey guys, blue post, Lunar Storm is not coming along like I want it to be. Transparency.
How about why did they mention Lunar Storm in the first place until it was ready?
Well, because they have to test to see if it's working. So let's say
this is our hero tree.
Okay, but why did the community need to hear about it before they tested it?
Because the community is the one testing it.
Because he's
okay.
No, hold on. Let me explain. Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question. Let me answer your question.
Or
I'm working on this bug, and I go, cool. I think it's in a working state. I put it on the PTR to test it. Whoop! It's not in a working state. Okay. Now, again, communication-wise, I could have said, guys, it's not in a working state. I might take it off the PTR, or I'm so busy, I'm leaving it on the PTR. Just ignore it, et cetera, okay? Question.
However, this wasn't like a one-off type of situation where just a few, like maybe one race or one spec or one certain, thing. Every single person that used this ability had this bug. Dude, they didn't test it at all. They coded it, they rolled it out, they said, fuck it. And that's how it came out.
See, that's what technically going back to the laziness after your whole speech, he still falls back on it.
On this particular situation, I think it is laziness, man. But I don't disagree with everything else you said.
But are you using it off the evidence, or are you just saying like he may have made a decision that was wrong, but lazy?
Frank, here's what I want to talk about, because it's like you kind of explained it in a way that me, who's not a dev, I'm like, oh yeah, this kind of makes sense. And of course your explanation is very charitable to them.
Yes, let's be clear for just a second. I am only playing devil's advocate. I'm not defending it. I want to just, for me, perspective matters, and so that's why I'm trying to get
a pretty realistic scenario that makes sense to me. And I think that in reaction to that, a lot of the people who are like, for example, monks, who are like, well, I still don't get to play this week because I'm not having any fun because there are bugs that are making it unplayable for me. Maybe people who are just like doing delves and stuff are like, no, it's not unplayable, it's fine. So how is this fixed? Is it more communication with the community? Like what can they do to avoid this level of backlash next time besides just like doing better?
So let me ask you this then. The question I have based on my story so far is transparency. Is it good or is it bad? Right.
Well, I obviously, the community, we prefer transparency because we want to know what's going on. But I'm sure they don't lean toward transparency because they have to have an excuse to say like, oh, it actually is working as intended, even though it's clearly obviously not. Hold
on. But I think, okay, you're using that example, I think, very heavy-handedly because you act like that's what their go-to is, right?
Well, yeah, because that was such an egregious, like,
it happened
so
once though, right?
I know, but they did it, man.
What was the example again? What was the example again?
I don't even remember what it was.
Oh my god.
So
scrap.
As intended.
This is the example I know Blizzard is notoriously famous for. Shani, I'll come back to you in just one second. I'm sorry.
Explain to me.
What was it, Shani?
It was the Ret Paladins.
It was the Ret Paladin hero trees.
Oh yes, the talent tree, the hero talent, right?
Talent trees,
right.
Yeah. Thank you, Shani.
So was that
on your behalf?
No, but even then, that was pre-patch. Was that as egregious of a reason to hold this over their head for the rest of their lives?
I mean, I'm gonna hold over that for a while because I think the reason why it was so egregious is because that they were saying that like, no, we intended for paladins not to have their trees, and they should have just said, hey, like we're still working on it. Like,
okay,
because
so language was what you're upset
what happened. Well, it said that they lied pretty blatantly.
It's like starting a post with "Hi."
Shut up, technique about that. You're always you die on the dumbest.
Fair enough. I don't think it's that egregious, but maybe Shani, you tell me if you disagree. Was it egregious to you enough to say this is how I'm going to view Blizzard for the rest of my life?
I don't know if I necessarily view that way for the rest of their life. It's more like I think they should be more honest in what they're saying.
Okay, so
even though I think their honesty we'll still burn them, because if they came out ahead of time and said, look, there's this stuff with Monk we just haven't fixed
Crack the
yet.
code.
Crack the code, fix it yet, but we're shipping it. People, if they put that post out like 2 days before the patch, people would still lose their mind.
However,
Maybe not as much, but they would still be freaking out like they are now. Because I think they would.
I'm going to add a separate perspective. I think a company of Blizzard's background, size, and value, and just like their resource amount, there's no excuse for the type of shit that monks are seeing right now, where like literally the specs that they are playing are completely unviable, like unless they,
Well, I don't know
utilize
if
a
that's
bug,
the case,
log
but
out, log
So-
back in, and get the bug activated. Like, come
Is
the
that-
fuck
No,
on, dude.
no. Hold on. But that's exploiting the bug. They didn't design that.
Okay, so just be dog shit.
Well, no.
No.
I think the other thing is,
they're not dog shit. They're not dog
I-
shit. Yeah.
I haven't personally seen a monk that was unplayable yet. Like
Yeah.
we have monks raid
We
with
see the
us,
spec.
and they're not at the bottom of it. Like
Yeah, I
if
think
they
that's
were,
a little
if they
dramatic.
were, if like the way people are going on about it, and I don't know because I don't play monk. So, but the
Why would
ones
you
I've
play a
seen,
monk?
if
Oh
it
my
was
God.
broke, if it was broken, unusable in our raid, that monk should be below the healers in DPS. But it's
Question
not.
to technique. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just like I don't think it's as egregious as it is. I will say that though I don't play monk, and I've heard monks complaining. But then I hear a lot of classes complain. I've heard other ret pallies complain about a 3% nerf going to cost them 3 weeks of their life. Like
I heard you complain about that.
Hold on. Okay.
Joe.
We need to, I don't want to jump around. Sorry. I'm sorry. So technique. How many people are on team 2?
4.
No, you said they have the vastness of resources. How many people are on team 2? And this includes everyone
What
on
are
the
you
World of Warcraft
talking
team.
about? At Blizzard on team 2?
Yeah. The
I
team
know
that writes
that
the
is.
team that
Girls
works the
versus
team
boys
that works
team? I don't
the
fucking know. I
team that
don't
works
work
on WoW
for
is known
Bobby
as Team
Kotick.
2, right? I say this because this is where my frustration comes back in. Microsoft, Apple, the biggest companies in the world, right? They're not flawless either. And you could say, well, the vastness of their resources, the vastness of their employees should therefore be inexcusable to make a mistake. That's not how coding works either, right? There's 300, 100 to 300 people.
Over whenever they release the product.
No, they don't.
Oh,
That's the
getting that.
point of sprints. You say, I have to put it out at this point. Now,
And
you
that's
could
because
argue.
some asshole at the top is like, hey,
No,
the money.
no, the lead developer is making that decision. And you could argue that, well, they should revert, like, for example, a monk change, which it sounds like they're going to do something. I don't know the details of it, but like it sounds like they've
They said
acknowledged
they
there's
were
something to be
gonna-
due, right?
They acknowledged it, and they did come out with a blue post saying that it's going to be adjusted by next reset.
But even with bugs,
By
look at
next
the
year.
Arcane Mages, right? Even with bugs, there was a bug for Arcane Mages that lasted 2 expansions because mages liked the bug, right?
Yeah.
And then
That's
they
a little
lost
bit
their mind
different.
when they reverted it. Well, no, it's not different. It's a bug's a bug.
It's a bug. Yeah.
Bug's a bug. No, I disagree, man.
And my point with the transparency, and Shani already acknowledged it, but like, so one, transparency can be a double-edged sword because I'm not good at communicating. So for example, the working as intended. Working as intended is a term that to a developer might mean something different to the community. Yeah. This person who wrote that post, I'm not defending them, but I'm just saying, let's say for the sake of argument, they wrote it haphazardly, and now their words are being construed. So there's a problem, there's a trap for them already to being open about communication, right? And the other side is, like, Blizzard's notorious for their soon trademark, right? Because because the second they say something, it is nailed to the wall as fact, and if you go against it or you alter or change it, you're done for, right? You are scrutinized and crucified. And so, it's again, I blame the community for this. I'm not saying that they're necessarily wrong in doing it, but I, as a dev, wouldn't want to be fully transparent. Now, I do agree here as an example, the Sentinel Hero thing. Just simply saying, hey guys, I saw this on Wowhead. Not that they should be reading Wowhead, but like, hey, I saw this.
No.
I want to let everyone know this is not going to go live. Don't fret. I'm still working on it, blah, blah. But they can't even say stuff like, hey, I'm still working on it, because like that's them being so transparent that they're like literally telling people what's in their queue for fixing bugs.
I do recognize also that this is an incredibly niche sort of thing, and I'm sure there were things way
Well,
more
hold
broken
on,
than
hold
the
on, hold on.
Sentinel thing.
Let's go to this real quick. Like, so here are all these bugs that have just, and by the way, I don't even think this is a comprehensive list because I
Don't
saw,
even get me started on my bugs.
right? I saw, like every time they did like a summary on Wowhead of like, hey, is this class ready for 11.05? And it said like, here's a list of all the bugs. I remember Elemental Shaman had like, you know, I think 12 things on it. But like, just to point out something.
Elemental Shaman, like on the chart where they were saying suspected like buffs and nerfs, everything had concrete numbers, and Ellie Shaman was just like, buffs we think or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was so up in the air.
Well, that was the writer though.
Like,
that wasn't the dev, right?
Yeah, no, that was just Wowhead. But it's just funny that like it felt so incomplete when they shut down the PTR. I can understand why people were nervous of like, how can they possibly like finish this in 1 week?
I think it is
So-
like an interesting like balance, because Blizzard kind of unfortunately has it just seems like the community is so in touch with every little change they make even before it's released.
Oh yeah.
That they somehow have to cater to that, and I completely fucking disagree with that.
I don't think they do,
should
though.
be able to do anything they want in beta and roll out whatever the fuck they want in launch and say, yeah, the shit in beta is not ready. Here's your launch. That's my opinion. Like, we don't need to be like, oh, PTR is a test for what's coming out on this particular patch.
Well, they don't announce the date until they feel confident that they can cut.
Yeah.
Right, because they don't put PTR saying this is coming out on October 27th and then just say good luck.
It's a much deeper conversation strictly because Blizzard, like, it seems like every single fucking human has their hands in their code for whatever reason, and it shouldn't be that way.
Well, so
it's gonna be incredibly difficult.
Go on, Shani.
I was gonna say, like, do you guys think, like, just where we're at and like patch notes and stuff, do you think that data mining adds to the problem that Blizzard has?
Absolutely. 100% adds to the problem.
You know, because like people data mine stuff and they're like, oh, there's this suggestive post that then like spirals into like, we're going to have this feature and this is going to be this, just off speculation.
There's difference between data mining though and patch notes. They released the patch notes. This stuff would be in the patch notes.
Okay, I understand that. I'm just saying, as Tech was talking earlier, do you think that data mining adds to the problem of they see something and they want it? Because you said once Blizzard says something, it's nailed to the tree. Even if Blizzard doesn't say it, if it's data mined, it becomes like Blizzard's gospel, not of their own accord, but because community looks at it and they're like, this is coming.
If it was me, bro, Shani, if it was me as their publicist or whatever the fucking person's title is, I would be a lot more like Helldivers treats their community and just shut the fuck up. Like, let them wonder, let them guess, let them data mine, let them pretend they have the answers. And on your fucking Twitter feed, it's like dead silent.
Well, okay, hold on.
Until you release it.
I want to answer Shani's question. Shani, the question is no, or the answer is no, and here's why. When a PTR or a beta patch comes out, yes, they are data mining the changes to tuning, right? So plus 10%, minus 10%. But Blizzard also releases a patch note soon after with those information. That information is not truly data mined. It's going to come out. They just get to it an hour early. What's data mined is the cinematic, the spell animations, what's this character doing in this spot. Like, that's data mined, and it spoils like the game proper. Like, it spoils the story, it spoils the raid bosses, for example. Like, I'll data mine the name of the raid bosses.
Yeah, that's how we know about the goblin raid coming.
Exactly. That's data mining.
I feel like they've data mined skills and stuff too. Or maybe I'm just crazy.
Maybe for like a expansion launch, like you'll see like a new spell coming. Sure. Right?
Yeah. So I guess it's more like, do you think it's a problem that people data mine this stuff ahead of time and then they get these expectations? Not because Blizzard put them there, because someone like fished up something and made speculations out of it.
I think
and then when they don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I understand. I think there's plenty to complain about with what they actually put out, like in the blue posts, in the PTR, that I personally don't think, I don't go deep enough into data mining, personally.
So
to say like, oh, like I hope we get this thing that somebody data mined. I hope we get Goblin Raid,
Yeah, but again, that's not tuning. That's speculation.
I think data mining, they can't really prevent it from happening, but I think that it doesn't help the community, from my perspective anyway. And I think Blizzard just needs to stop like reacting to it and worrying about it.
They can prevent it from happening. They can encrypt all the data.
You don't think all the data is encrypted?
Not the patch notes, because again, they're going to announce those patch notes. There are some things that get through because someone made a mistake. For example, the Goblin Raid thing that happened.
Yeah.
That was a mistake. That was, you could even say like do not, I think it said like do not post or whatever, right? And so like that got through because someone didn't encrypt that part. Now granted, you could argue there's a marketing play there that maybe they're doing it on purpose. I don't know. Like that, just for the sake of argument, don't worry about that. But they encrypt the story. We didn't know what was going to happen. We knew what $1 was going to fall, but we didn't know why or how until the day of launch because it was encrypted.
Yeah.
So they can hide, and they choose not to hide some things because they're going, well, this is, again, I'm going to release a patch note with a build for the PTR because, for example, the PTR is a build, not a patch. So every time a change is made to, or I should say, anytime they upload changes to the server, that's a new build. So which is why you always see 11.0.5, but you'll see build 122.856 or whatever. And so like the builds are always going to have patch notes on the PTRs because they just want to let the community know, like, here's what we're looking at, here's what we're cooking with. But again, it's nothing on those or ever to say this is definitive. It's just like, this is the current state we're at with our tuning / work we're doing. And anytime something is quote unquote done, it goes into that build to test it. So I want to bring this up as an example because we saw this, Shauna, you weren't there, but we saw this all firsthand. So here's a bug that happens on the Silken Court. There's a desync issue with the spike storm. So the intermission number 2 where the rings are coming out. And this is the quote, spike circles appear to be severely desynced from their animations or invisible, hard to tell which. This means that the second intermission on Silken Court, Mythic, but we had it in Heroic, is a massive issue as it's little RNG whether you die or not. So last night in our raid, we were doing Silken Court, like 16 people got hit by this ring that looked like it was going to go off, seconds later, or maybe it didn't go off, whatever happened, but 16 people got hit, right? And luckily we were able to break out of it. It wasn't a big deal, but that's a bug.
That's
first
a bug.
I
question.
think in our raid, it was most likely 16 people suck.
So,
Well, I didn't get hit by it.
first question, did any one of us submit a bug?
No, why the fuck would I do that, man?
Okay.
They got
Off to a
coders,
great
they got
start,
people
community.
crawling around their fucking cubicles.
Second
Why
point.
not?
Second point. This is now in the, let's say that we did submit a bug, okay? This is now in what's I think would be called the backlog in their case, right?
Official MDL bug uploads.
So this is in their backlog. It's not going to get a lot of story points because it's something that is probably very easy to fix. I go, oops, I fucked up this code, and they fix it, right? However, they have 4,000, hundreds of thousands of these, let's just say for the sake of argument, okay? They have a ton of these to choose from. So the question has to become, is it urgent and is it important? Because if it's
the squeaky wheel.
Okay, so that's how you would decide to do it, technique, right? The squeakiest wheel gets the grease?
No. If I was in the community and gave a fuck, I would be squeaky as hell.
About
But me
this?
as a dev, I don't give a shit about who's squeaky.
Yeah,
Not
and
one
I
shit.
can tell you from my experience with my devs, they could give two shits about not only the customer or the company's
The
desires.
customer doesn't know shit.
Yes, we're not going to get
what's
into that.
most important.
And as you just pointed out, the community doesn't know shit. But anyways, so the point is that this is going to go into the backlog. Now, someone might say, "Oh, I could do that while I'm eating my lunch and just and get it done," right? But there's thousands of these.
While I'm supposed to be eating lunch.
No, they're not killing. They're coding. Anyways, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's you. You're the mythic raider.
Oh, yes, yeah, I do that. Yes,
Yes.
but I'm not a dev either. So point is that this is just a small example of thousands upon thousands of things that they might be receiving. Oh, by the way, they're also receiving thousands of thousands, or maybe not, according to us, not submitting them, but thousands of versions of this bug. So they have to sort through all that shit too, and that's why this stuff happens. Where, as you say, they're not getting in on time. Will this probably be fixed? Tonight? Probably already is. It's probably already fixed.
Already is, yeah.
And that I think speaks to that they are reacting quickly, because in another environment, right, it might take a week to fix this thing. But
Plus, we
Blizzard,
got Halloween coming up, so they're gonna need a little break, and then after that, it'll be maybe time to fix this stuff. I'm just saying they're gonna have
Halloween
fall
vacations.
break, and then they have trick or treating. There's a lot going on right now. I doubt they're going to get to this.
Not to because I'm listening. I think you're completely right. Is that like they hot fix things like this?
They have to. This can't wait for a patch.
They don't have to.
This can't wait for a patch. But I will say, again, this is more to the like. I wish there was more transparency. But just like a bug for survival that was in the game from 11.0 to 11.05 is that when you used your harpoon on Rashanon and Dawnbreaker, you flew off the Dawnbreaker. And they acknowledged that was a problem like the second week of the patch. And they said, hey, we're going to fix it in 11.0.5. And to me as a player, I think, bro, can you not just move the hitbox slider a little bit forward so I can use like a pretty key thing of my kit and not fly off the fucking shit?
Okay.
Like,
that seems like a 5-minute fix that somebody could just like be like.
I agree. But let's run through this scenario. Okay. The first scenario is
I can picture scenarios where it might take longer than normal, but I wish there was transparency of them like it's like, oh yeah, there's a load bearing code on Rashanon's hitbox that we cannot move your harpoon. It's gonna take 5 weeks and 10 people on it. Like,
no, it might be that they just lost the argument to say, can I hotfix this?
Actually, the least important class. We don't give two shits.
That's what I feel like.
So, guys, again, this is not helping you.
Let me tell you where that feeling leads me. It makes me want to go into the Frosty K Discord and laugh at them for their nerfs. So because now they know how I feel because Blizzard hates me too.
Scrap. The fact that you got even a response on that is impressive because I'm the survival dev, right? How many bugs do you think I'm getting reported over the course of the first 2 weeks of the expansion?
Probably a lot. But it seems like that.
How much time? How much time would I have to expend?
In the game where like our main resource, random abilities are just eating 2 of it for no reason, which messes up your whole rotation. And they have not fixed that. In fact, I feel like it's gotten worse. But like, and I can understand.
Someone's gonna tell that bitch to stop talking over people.
That randomly, like using this ability eats 2 stacks of this as opposed to 1 stack of this or what the hell ever, right?
Didn't even phase her.
Dude, I'm just
scrap. You're right. Listen.
Like,
how many? So thousands of bugs, right? Some important, some not so important, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The fact that they took the time, because imagine if I had to take the time for every single bug and just give you a response of, I'm working on it to some degree.
Yep.
How much time would that eat up of the dev's day?
I feel like it should take about as much time to move the slider as it does to make a blue post. But
maybe, absolutely.
Slider,
right? You could argue that.
Go in and change the 5% to like 8%.
But there's other variables too, right? Because once you say, okay, I'm going to fix this. Like the dev said, hey, I'm going to fix this for you, right? That we've already acknowledged that they did that, which
and they got
in and of
their
itself is nice
to work on it. That's what I'm thinking.
No, what happens is they say, cool, I have this plus 40,000 other bugs to fix. And again, I might not only be a survival dev hunter, I might also work on rogue or, whatever.
Yep.
And so I'm working on that and I got it done, but I'm not winning the argument with my lead dev to say, can I put this in a hotfix? I go, no, that'll just wait till 11.05 because, whatever reasons they come up with.
Because they hate my class.
Maybe.
Really quick
because they're so worried about Dawnbreaker and you flying off with Disengage.
I've flown off it so many times.
Which, by the way, Dawnbreaker in and of itself, how many bugs did they report?
Yeah.
Yes, Technique.
All right, Shani, this one's for you. Did you think that this tab was going to be the longest one?
This technically wasn't the longest one. This one was.
I feel like this tab is hard because how do we put a bow on
whatever
this?
That
let's put a bow on. Let's put a bow on what the chaos is, because I'll put a bow on the idea of the dev. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying, guys, perspective matters, and what all that's happening is I don't even believe the devs are hearing. They might see the memes because they're funny and they're getting traction on Twitter and all that stuff, right? They're probably seeing that, and the Fingerless Cretins gave the Arcane Mage dev or the Warlock dev maybe a really good laugh. They might post it on their cubicle wall, so while they walk around cubicles, they can look at it, right? But I do not for a second believe that any of the protests, any of the whatever's happening led to the Arcane Mage nerf. I think there's no evidence to suggest that. It's never been done by Blizzard before.
They're fucking lazy.
And so I say all that because all that's happening is everyone in the community is like self-inflicting this personal, like it's so personal to everyone that their class is the best, as opposed to the fact that I want to refer back to this, right? That in the area where most of us, and again, even the 10s were like the top 5% or whatever, right? But in the area of where, where's the number here? It's up here, right? So, okay, so 4 million of what looks to be about, let's say 25 million. That's like the top, or you know, like 80% of players are fitting within the first 6 keys. Yeah? Maybe the first like 7 keys. So the first 7 keys is, I'm not going to say harmony, but it's looking pretty good. Right, that's looking pretty good for a balance, not a balance, but a representation.
Really strong.
Well, no, but Frank, I think you're so right. The perspective is so important because, like, I'm only seeing the charts that are showing the top 0.1%, the title range, you know, like the people played at like 12 up, because those are the only charts that are juicy enough to complain about. But you're right that like the vast majority of keys being run is pretty damn balanced, honestly. So except for the healer one.
Yeah.
The healer one's fucked.
Yeah, the healer one's fucked.
And
the healer one's fucked. They need to fix it.
To put a bow on Shawnee's data mining thing, right? Like, Shawnee, to answer your question about data mining in general, data mining is terrible for the game, right? No, but I'm saying as far as balance goes. I do want to make sure I address that though, because I said no, but only for tuning, not for everything else. Fuck data mining on others.
I guess for me, I wasn't saying, I meant it more general than not just tuning. I personally think it is horrible for the game for people to try to find all these suggestive things and then run wild with them, and then like it becomes this like thing, and people are like, oh, we're gonna get this, and when they don't, they're super mad. And I'm like, well, no one said you were gonna get it. Blizzard didn't say you're gonna get it. Someone data mined, you know, an acronym, and they're like, this is what it means, and it didn't at all. So anyway, I think more people need to be patient and enjoy the thing when it comes out,
actually,
and like just marvel in the wonder of it as it is, instead of trying to be like, I need to know everything about it before it comes out.
Thank you for saying that. Patience, right? And I'm going to refer to Balanced Druids here as an example, because I was given a very sharp impression before War Within launched that balance was going to be dumpster dogfire bullshit, the worst spec ever made. It's so broken. Well, he also inflicted that onto Max's tier list, and I don't have it pulled up at the moment. I'm not going to go search for it, but like our meta list was also saying it was like not dumpster, but like C tier, right? And yet that couldn't be further from the truth.
I'd say our tier. Wait, before you go for it, our tier list had it where it was only because we were prefacing on
everyone else
wasn't Dragonflight.
Good point. Yeah.
So we have one good Moonkin that we know in the real
not one
world,
good,
and he's good.
Not one good. Look right here. They're doing more than any hunter. Look, no hunters. Balance, right? In fact, by the way, we should point out Feral's just like disappeared.
That's literally one Moonkin that makes up that entire community of 15 players.
Okay, what about the 12 players?
Okay, who gives a fuck?
They're out there. They're outperforming players. Monk. They're outperforming almost all warlocks, right?
All hunters, all priests.
And again, this is one single spec. One single spec is outperforming. You know, again, all demon hunters. Well, granted, demon hunters only have the one.
In my groups, there's a couple of things they bring that make them really strong. They have Typhoon. They have their little fucking suction. Fucking circle, whatever that's called.
Technique. I think you're missing the point.
Battle res.
He's missing
the point. That's the point of the. That's the point of the tier list, right? You factor all those things in. So to go back to the point of so Arcane Mages and Frost DKs got nerfed. Oh no!
They look cool as shit, man.
Frost DKs on their fantastic AOE got a 2.5 nerf. Right?
This is the revised
Arcane Mages actually kind of really didn't get nerfed at all. It was just a balance act, right? And then, Fire Mages, poor Fire Mages on their single got actually pretty hurt. But
here's what I think, Ian.
What?
You ready? I think classes like Rogue, which offer 0 to the raid, need something to offer to the raid.
Rogues absolutely do not offer 0.
Yeah, I don't know why you
skip entire fucking packs, dude.
Well, but even on raid. No, but even raid, you can immune. You can immune certain things.
What I mean is they don't offer a battle res. They don't offer a raid buff. They don't offer.
They do offer raid buff.
Shut the fuck up, man! What raid buff do they offer?
Don't they have a poison they can apply?
Not to the whole raid.
No, it applies to the
I don't
boss,
want
which
them
therefore
to
applies to the
I don't
whole
want them
raid.
to.
No,
Oh,
but it's only
what?
their singular poison. All rogues have a poison they put on something. I think technique more means like they don't have this like big overall help to raid. Like
Yeah.
a monk has like the wind, not a monk, but like shamans have their totem, like
You
wind
know, like
fury
for M
totem
plus,
or
when
whatever.
you're filling a group, you need a battle res, you need a bloodlust hero, and you need a tank, and you need a healer, and then like there's one other DPS spot, and yeah, you might put a rogue in that spot, I guess.
Well, right
Shawnee-
now it's a rogue because there's so much DPS out of a rogue.
He's talking about Mythic Plus now. I don't know what
Now,
the point
yes,
is.
in Mythic Plus they
What's
take
he
rogues because they
talking
do a
about?
ton of DPS.
I'm talking about the price of tea in China. Scrap.
Great, man.
Shawnee, what's mind numbing poison?
It doesn't work on raid bosses.
Okay. Maybe
But he's
well,
gonna
it
Mythic
doesn't
Plus
matter.
now.
We're that's a rabbit hole we don't need to go down. Put in the comments if you know what I'm referring to. I could have sworn they had something they could monks, like demon hunters, they could apply it to the boss.
They were supposed to.
Who gives a fuck if they cast
And then-
slower, dude? Not one person.
That doesn't work. But it was Outlaw was supposed to have this raid buff that actually gave you cooldown reduction coming into this expansion.
Oh, that's
and
right. Yes, I do remember that too.
And they just totally took it out. They're like, nope, rogues don't get a cooldown reduction. Because everyone's like, oh my god, you'll want a rogue because it'll line up all these cooldowns better, yada, yada, yada. They got rid of it.
I only say this because every time
far
I
off
hear
the
about the
point.
raid comps for the Race the World First, rogues are always considered a part of it for some. I don't remember why. I'm not
For
doing
Mythic, yeah, because right now assassination is like blowing stuff up. And in Mythic, when you're using it's easier than using a potion, but I don't think the potion thing matters anymore because now you can use an invis potion and still use your own other pot too. They don't have the same cooldown.
But this is beyond the performance. This is about why that you always have a DK, you always have a druid because of Mark of the Wild, you always have a mage because of Arcane. Rogues are always brought for something. I don't know what it is, but whatever. Okay, well let's move
Rogues
on.
in the comments,
for the most
you made it this far.
Yeah, rogues. For the most part, my understanding is they, like Shawnee said, they blow shit up, man. Like your assassination rogue or your rogue or whatever, they're gonna single target something down really fucking good, and they have a lot of control, stuns and kicks and shit.
Anyways,
Frank, before we got derailed, I think the point you're trying to making
derail. We'll be on the fucking tab for 9,000 minutes.
There was an unbelievable amount of backlash over what were really, really, really small nerfs and warranted nerfs.
This right here. Fingerless Cretins over
can I bring something
collectively 0.5%.
Yeah. Well,
that number's not even what you highlighted. It says 0.6.
Fingerless Cretins.
Between the two, single target AoE.
Hold on, Frank. Fingerless Cretins was in response to the overreaction.
Yes, that's true.
Of the things, and I kind of want to I'll put this in, so if you want to put it in, you can. But I think in the survival Discord, I was watching, people who are watching the Frost Discord and Arcane Discord, and this person said the FDK and Arcane Discords went into complete apoplectic meltdown over what amounts to a 0.3% nerf and a 1% nerf, and I think that sums up everything really nicely.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah. So here's the summary right here, right? I want to put a bow on this whole story so we can move on to the question of the week and then get out of here. But
I want to know what the bow is because I feel like at a loss for the bow.
I want to talk to the community for a second, okay? I can't speak for everyone. I don't know if there's people out there that are actually just more posy vibe than general. But Scrap, you said it, and Shawnee, you said it, that in general, we're just getting worse and worse and worse when it comes to talking about things like this, right? I came into Discord tonight. Now, Technique, you can obviously counterpoint this, and Shawnee, you can counterpoint this, but the first thing I hear is one person complaining about something, another person who doesn't directly complain about something, but is effectively, Shawnee, you brought up the point of saying, oh, because of this nerf, which by the way was a 3% nerf, I now have 3 vaults that are useless because I'm going to need them just to catch back up, right? And I want to point out this was a paladin that said that, and to catch back up to, dominance in the meta game. Sorry, I want to get back to that page there. There we go.
Who said that?
I'm not gonna do that, right?
No,
because it's not individualized. That's the problem. It's not falling into one single person. And I say this because there's warlocks who do it. There's shamans who do it. I don't know many mages. We don't really have mages anywhere in the community, but I'm sure they would be doing it too, as evident by the Arcane Mage the Discord. But even hearing things like Beastmaster being dead. We've seen Beastmasters play well enough to do the things we want to do, and yet because they're on the F tier of that damage meter list, which by the way is the top 1% of players, everyone just immediately throws it away. And I say this constantly about tier lists, I say this about tuning, like for the most part, the game is playable, bugs aside. I know that's a different story, but for the most part, the game is playable for almost every single possible variation of how you would want to play it. Does it mean that Scrap, which we'll talk about next week, you have a hard time getting into 12s? Sure.
I have a hard time getting into 11s that I've already plus 2'd.
Yes, but that's also a result of this problem, right?
Yeah. And so, I have a lot to say on that, which
we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. Yeah.
Soul for another week.
Yeah.
I have a thing about what you're talking about. Yeah. I think people are overreacting in general because I've always said, and I'll live by forever, when they make these tier lists and everything that we see, and they're like, oh my god, I'm an F. So there's another list we have that has like the average runs, top DPS, how many runs, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
The top average DPS is 1.5 million.
Here, I'll pull it up now real quick.
The bottom DPS is 1 million. So,
well, I'm not going to look at this week because that's clearly... Actually, by the way, can we just point out real quick? Broken Spec is Outlaw Rogue.
How did that happen?
I think it's a bug. It's a bug. I think it's a bug. But anyways, sorry. Sean, go on.
Sure, but you don't have a Battle Res or a Bloodlust.
This is last week. Sean, you go on.
Or a Yang.
Yeah. So last week, if you look at the average DPS, top is 1.5 million. The bottom is 1 million. And what do we typically say about doing 10s? They should be fine as long as everyone that is DPSing is doing over 1 million. So everyone should really be able to do a 10. And I don't think there's this like massive disparity that people think there is. I think it's just they see this number at the start and like someone says this is meta and then everyone runs with it. Now there's disparity in what people are playing, and because they just want to play what is perceived as the best.
Can I also point out? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go.
I was going to point out like this bubble right here, because like, okay, let's look for just a second and cut off the top 5, right? So Elemental down to Beastmaster. The sliver is actually only really like 1.0 versus 1.2. So, and granted, that's arguably a 20% swing. However, this is averages, right?
Swing.
But it's averages, right?
Between 1 and 1.5 is some people at the top are 50% better than the people at the bottom.
But
that's
the thing that's swaying this data though is the people who are having. Well, no, not even that. They're playing a different style of M+ than we are, right? They're doing the MDI style or the Great Push style routes that we would never dream of doing. And therefore, because they're so overrepresented in also the key numbers, that number swings, right? But at the end of the day, and we haven't done our tier list yet, we need to start really getting work on that. But like at the end of the day, for every time I've seen a Great Frost Death Knight, Scrap has seen a terrible one. For every time I've seen a Great Og Evoker that helped me, feel more comfortable even with just their defensives, I've seen a terrible one. For every Windwalker, for every balance.
Can I just say, has anybody seen a good mage in any of their pugs?
I've never played with a mage that's good.
I've had a good mage. I've had a good one in a pug.
Never.
One.
Let me tell you, never. There were people I was borderline considering reporting based on the damage output in like 11.
I have reported more mages than I've found good mages, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just, I think a lot of time with the data.
Obviously not you.
We are going to have a team meeting after this podcast.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about pugs,
no,
man.
You're not.
Yeah, pugs, Frank.
Anyways.
Not you, bro.
Anyways.
Not you. We're bros, bro.
Point is that there's enough variation for 95%. And all the people that we interact with, there's enough variation that I really want to say, not quit your bitching, not, you have every right to say, I have an opinion about this. But what I feel is the opinions they're not helping you. And actually, Scrap, I'll ask you this question. How many times have we interacted with a DPS player who is not able to get into 10s or time 10s or time 11s, and it's not because of their damage output, but it's because some other skill that they're missing, whether it be even just building a team.
90 to 95% of the time, especially when you go 10 up, you might hit a damage check, but for the most most of the time, if you do everything correctly and nobody wipes and everything is kicked and defensive and everything, you can be doing not a lot of damage and time the key.
But even then, you don't, all these people did find damage. Like, all the people that we've ever interacted, it's not like we had to say, hey, no, really, it is your damage. No, it's, you've played well enough. You should be timing 10s and 11s, but there are other things you're missing.
Let me use an example, like that mage I had that I almost reported. Dude, I also had a warlock that I almost reported. I said, and I'm talking about this more in the pug episode, the thing that hurts me the most is when you get somebody in your pug, like, for example, like a 11 mists or whatever, and, like, they do so poorly with damage that, like, they're around the tank and we still time it because the execution was correct, right? Like, you can have people doing literally tank damage and you still time an 11, like, as long as everybody else is doing everything right.
Yeah.
If done correctly, yeah. And it's so frustrating to give those people score, man. And
Okay,
I feel so bad.
save that for next week. But I want to circle around to the point, like, all the negativity and to the point where we're seeing people abandon their class because they think
silly shit.
They
man.
think they're going to do X or Y differently with their new class or new spec or whatever, right? Now, everyone in this Discord has stuck to their guns about what they like to play. Scrap, you've always played Warrior and Hunter. Shawnee, you've played mostly Rogue, but you've switched to Paladin, and you love Paladin, regardless of where it stands. Technique has always been a Warrior tank. I don't think you've even tried other tanks, right?
I've been a Paladin tank
That's
before
true.
you became a WoW player. It's fine.
And, of course, I've always stuck to Arcane. Now, of course, there have been times where I've wavered on that, but I've always returned because of my love, right?
Arcane when it was straight dog shit,
and
all of us were going to have to have an intervention with you because it was so annoying.
But the point being that, like, I really find it heartbreaking and frustrating. I get angry about it because all I hear is blame on other people, blame on the devs, blame on the pugs, blame on, this new key system. And I'm so disheartened to hear all that. So I say that, and I want to open the floor up to you guys because I feel like I've been talking 90% of this podcast today.
Going
no, that was Scrap.
No, I'm not, but I want, and actually I really want to hear more from Shawnee and Technique because I feel like Scrap will have an opinion on it and we'll definitely get to it. But I want to hear, like, do you think there's any remedy for this?
I don't know. I don't want to be an old man on my lawn before Technique gets to be an old man on his lawn.
Oh, bro, I'll be old all day.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be slightly old man on my lawn on this. I think a part of me is, like, remedy-wise, is, like, people are too worried about being the 0.1%, and they're not going to be, and they never will be. That's why it's 0.1%. And I think a lot of people are playing really well, and they're just like, I'm not achieving this because they can't. It's not going to happen. I don't. They just gotta relax and enjoy the game. Like, it's like when people are 2 weeks in and they're like, I can't get accepted into 12s, and it's like, well, you haven't completed a 7. They're like, but I'm good enough. I'm like, well, then prove it. Like, get an 8,
wasn't
a
that
9,
egregious.
a 10,
let's
11.
be clear. It wasn't egregious.
Totally not.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, just in general,
you're being
people
facetious
are.
with it.
Yeah, like, people are. They're not patient enough with the game. They're like 2 days. Like, they're just. It drives me insane. And they're too negative, and I don't see how that's fun. And it's not fun to be around. I don't enjoy, like, tonight in Discord, like it was. It's like people complaining about they're like few percent less, or hearing someone be like, you're 10 eye levels above me and you're better, like, doing more damage. How's that fair? I'm like, well, maybe you're not as good as you think. Like, that would be my answer to that person, right? Like, it's okay to, like, you should always look at yourself and be like, I see how I'm doing well. I see how I've improved, and I see that I can do better. Because once you think you've achieved it, you've stopped trying to do better, and you're actually going to decrease in what you're doing. So just be happy, enjoy the game. Like, if no one's getting paid to play this, we're paying them. So, like, make the best of your money. I don't know. And if it's that miserable, quit.
Yeah.
Like, I would never, anyway, I would, if I found it so miserable that I didn't think I could go through with it, and as much as I love WoW, I have a WoW tattoo, I'd quit. 100% I'd be able to be like, yeah, uninstall, quit. I'll do
We'll
something
talk
else.
about that more next week.
I would say more of that next week. We have a whole arc that unfolded that we didn't even talk about because we had so much shit to talk about.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it, Frank. That to do better, I think people themselves have to do better. And I think back to way earlier, I think people are just also not happy in life. And it's spilling over into their extra hobbies where they're not happy there now also. Anyway,
I agree,
yeah.
dude. Not to get political about it, but yeah.
Oh no.
Definitely don't get political about it.
No, I didn't mean it politically. I just mean
Technique.
Anyway,
what advice would you have for everyone? And I don't think this is exclusive to our Discord, right? Because no matter where we go, we hear it.
No. 100%.
What advice do you have for people that are currently facing this kind of
Mass disparity type of thing?
Well, and just this woe is me, and I can't believe I'm not gonna X, Y, and Z.
Best thing to do is just play a warrior, honestly. Warrior's in a really good spot. If you want to tank, just be a warrior. It's just so good. It's really good. The other warrior. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, man, I've always been a warrior since I can, remember. Just play what makes you, like what Shawnee was saying, dude. Play the game to have fun. Don't worry about are you number 1, number 2, number 5, number 300, number in Scrap's case, number 6,000, whatever. Who cares? It's just do your thing and vibe. Just vibe. Just vibe.
Every single
I've got a piece of advice, Frank.
Yeah, I'm going to come to you. I just want to put a point on that. Every single spec. Oh, maybe not arms. Well, arms shows up later, so I'm going to give them the check mark.
Honestly, I've played arms, and although it's not as good as Fury on the numbers, I do just fine. Yeah, and I feel just fine.
Dev
and
Evoker.
I do just fine.
Dev is there.
Dev Evoker is gone.
But no, Dev is there. But why play Dev when you can play Og and get into keys, right?
Right.
So my point was going to be though,
more fun for some people.
No, I get it. But you should be happy about that, right? You should be happy, hey, I'm getting into keys now. I've made the sacrifice, yes, to go to Og, but I'm more happy than I would be playing Dev and not getting into keys, right? And of course, you could say I want quality of life improvements to make sure that's not necessary, of course, but I don't get angry about it. But anyways,
I get angry about it.
But anyways, no, if you did, you'd switch to marksman then.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'd rather be angry than switch to marksman.
Okay, you're stubborn. You're stubborn. Okay.
Stubborn, yeah.
But what I was trying to put, and then I'll come to you, Scrap, is every single spec can achieve a 10, which is the top 5% ish. Every spec can achieve, it looks like even around the 13, 14s, because Dev falls off, but again, I think that's the Og thing. Arms comes back in for some reason. I don't see a survival hunter there, Scrap, just waiting for you.
I'm working on it.
And by the way, point out to shout out to Scrap. Scrap, you'd be within I think the top 10 of the US and the top 50 of the world.
Top 10 of all 10 survival hunter players.
If you were in the 13s range, right? So you are subject matter expert on survival and the journey you're going through.
Well, okay, that leads into my advice really well. Is that pick something that you enjoy and become a master of it.
Yeah.
Because if you are the master of even the worst spec, you'll be doing better than most people there. And I see most of the people I see struggling where they're switching between alts and they're well, this is really good this week, or I need to chase this because I'm heard this is getting buffed and stuff. You that time you could be spending mastering a spec and knowing everything about it and being in the Discord and learning about it and looking at people's logs and looking at what people in the high end are using. If you really get obsessed with it and really into it, you will outperform people who are flavor of the month right now. I did a key yesterday and I was leagues above a Frosty K and an Ellie Shaman, because I know my shit. No, what's the difference?
You beat Shiny Nice, Rhett, and Arcane.
Well, yeah, so since the buffs, and I will say we did get buffed, I haven't lost a damage meter in a key, but I've only done a couple. So, but I'm just saying, you need to learn your shit. And I've geared it to the teeth. There's also people who are they're switching between alts and stuff. I'm 627, geared to the teeth, and I'm doing okay. It's hard to get into keys, but my performance in the keys is good. So you can pick any fucking spec on here, except maybe Beast Mastery Hunter, it looks like. That one you might want to change your mind on. But for the most part, just pick something you like. And let's say you are in a Beast Mastery Hunter situation. The hunter kit, just try marksman, just try survival. If you're playing one of the classes that has multiple DPS specs, you're in such good shape because you can just try different stuff,
Beastmaster was
That's my
buffed
advice.
and is now in the middle of the pack, by the way.
That's beautiful. I love that.
So
that's really
and
good for
Blizzard
them.
acknowledged they needed some work, right? But
Yep.
I want to piggyback off of your point, Scrap, and then I'll give you my piece of advice. So first, be careful though, going head first into all that stuff without something to the hubris, to ground you in saying like, well, just because the Discord says, or just because the guide writer says, or YouTuber or whoever says, well, this is, a bug and Blizzard bad and like, just, take gracefulness of like, well, I'm enjoying the spec. I think that's the biggest thing I'd say about what you're saying is pick the spec you not want to master, but the one you want to enjoy the most.
Yeah, you should start with what you enjoy the most and then master it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because like honestly, even though survival is reworked like twice now since like in the past 2 patches, complete total reworks and things like rotational buttons changed and stuff, like it's pretty easy to pick up because the concept is still there, right?
Sure.
And all the extraneous kit is still there. So I feel comfortable picking it up. Whereas like if you're switching from one thing to another thing, constantly chasing this flavor of the month, it's what do they say, jack of all trades, master of none. Like if you can master one, you're gonna compete on the higher end. Maybe 1 or 2 specs, get good at them.
My piece of advice is I'm not going to go as extreme and say delete it, but stop
delete
looking.
WoW?
No, stop looking at details.
Delete?
Yeah.
You have to look at details. That's a cold fucking take.
Here's my thought.
I'm with you,
The
Frank.
best I've enjoyed playing so far, and maybe ever in WoW, is this season my attempts at doing 12s. And it's not when I'm at the top of the meter, it's when I'm finding that synergy of weaving, especially now with alter time, weaving in my interrupts, my alter times, my ice blocks, my invises, my mirror images. And by the way, no one ever should say that mages don't have a lot. And of course all the shields that I can put up. And just finding that harmony of really flowing into successfully destroying the boss and the dungeon, that to what I even heard within our own push group, that 12s are impossible because of some of the hits that the casts that you have to survive, etc. I did a Necrotic Wake 12. I did a Arakara 12. Arakara, of course, that first boss, the spider boss, is like brutal. Necrotic Wake, a lot of it's brutal. And the best I played was when I was just finding that harmony, that flow of really executing my rotation correctly, using my defensives at the perfect moment, all that jazz. And then when I look at the details, which I like I said, I didn't delete it, but I looked at it, I was last. But I did 1.9 million overall. I did come second or third to a Ret Pally and a Frosty K.
But
they
this
were
wasn't at the end of the key, Frank, either.
Yes, it was.
Oh, you finished a 12?
Yeah. We died on the last boss because of bullshit, but like it wiped almost immediately and we were done. But yeah, we went into the last boss with 1.9. I crushed the third Stitch fish or whatever his name is.
Necrotic Wake,
Stitch Flesh. And again, like I just felt I didn't care. Yeah, and 1.9 was great for me. I was so thrilled about that.
They did big
despite the fact, they were really big pulls. Despite the fact that they were beating me, and despite that, I could easily made excuses. Oh, they're meta, and they just like they got the devs love and all that. It wouldn't have helped me. It wouldn't have helped me enjoy the moment that I did playing the fucking game, right? Find a way to play the game. Don't worry about details, because that's where it all stems to, is these logs, right? Is where do I land on these logs? When in actuality, like Fire Mage and Shadow Priest were meta for a lot of those seasons, not necessarily because they were the best DPS, but because of their toolkits. And we rarely see people actually lose their mind over toolkits, right? Like in this little post right here, nothing is really talked about their toolkits. Despite the fact that, shamans might have gotten this really amazing totem defensive buff, blah, 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 blah. Right? But this is what people lose their ever-loving mind of. So my advice is find a way to not delete it, but ignore details. Play your game, seek improvement over your previous best self, and you will find excellence one way or another.
I mean, I think it's an interesting insight, because you say like you enjoy the game not looking at details, but
It's
for
a
me,
recent
maybe-
departure. Recent departure. I
Yeah.
used to.
I was gonna say for me as a DPS, like details is the game to me.
Yeah.
But
here's the problem
So,
that I have with that.
maybe that's a toxic mindset.
No, it's not
but, like,
toxic, but it could be
Yeah.
it could be self-inflicting the reason why you're not timing 12s. Because you're not finding that flow where you need to maybe slow down to speed up kind of thing, right? Like saving your cooldowns for the next pack that's going to have triple the pack because you blew up the one pack that had 4 mobs as opposed to 12 mobs. And that's why I'm so, and we'll talk about this more in the Pug episode, I'm so adamant about routes and all that stuff. Okay.
Make sure you share your MDT route, by the way, thanks.
Oh, I will, yeah.
No, we're gonna talk about it in the Pug episode. No more. We're pushing 2.
Let's go to question of the week. Let's go to question of the week. So I'm gonna actually read this question. Sorry for the flashbang. Okay, so this is from Valinor. And by the way, hashtag Year of the Spear Scrap.
Yeah, you're the Spear. He's my fellow survival hunter in raid.
I feel that AOTC is a little tough for the reward. Most of our raid does not need this tier token, and we still haven't achieved AOTC, while M+ or PvPers are relatively easier in his opinion. So either, do you think we should increase the reward to a mythic tier, please, and increase M+ requirements to maybe 2.5k, PvP to 1800 as an example, or decrease the AOTC requirement to maybe a normal queen kill? This may seem a bit too easy, but it would help transition into that heroic raid gear, which the tier piece would be so critical. So at the heart of it, the question is, does AOTC's reward, which is a tier piece token of heroic level, heroic track, I should say, match the work that's going into what we're currently trying to do with Queen Ansurrect? Now, I will preface this with saying, I think every single one of us all has hero track tier filled out. Is that correct?
Yeah, completely.
So,
and it's been for weeks.
do you guys have a solution to this problem? Or is it even a problem?
Well, I like Valinor's proposal of adding a mythic tier piece just to Queen Ansurrect, because the damage difference between the council boss before and Ansurrect is just like the difficulty difference is insane. Like, and it seems like, I feel like AOTC is that higher value reward compared to the tier piece, but it is a little bit silly that not a single person in our raid is going to roll need on that. Like, that seems very undervalued.
Well, no, it's the reward. You don't even have to roll for it. You'll just get it.
You could get 2. You could get 2.
Yeah, but didn't we already get it anyway?
We did,
you can only
because
get it once, right?
Yeah, we did it because we got it through KSM.
Oh, okay. So you can get it. Yeah, KSM is definitely easier. I mean, we got that week 1. Like, that's silly. Like, that's the same. Yeah,
which
it should be mythic.
I think was an unintended result of the changes to the mythic dungeon, like scaling, not scaling, but just the rating.
Yeah, and we talked about this also, like when they were adjusting and they were making the mythic rewards in the vault less than the rating rewards, and we all kind of agreed, well, rating's a lot fucking harder than mythic, so it makes sense that the rewards aren't as good.
Only because there's like not more of me and more of others, you know.
Yeah, that we already kind of talked about all the factors like that go into that. But yeah, I do think the best solution to that, because I do think AOTC is like the reward that's a cut above, just doing the other bosses. But a lot of people don't really care about that. I think a mythic tier piece dropping would be cool.
I think a lot of people do care about AOTC, but
yeah,
I think Mythic Plus overshadows it because a lot more people play Mythic Plus because it's so more accessible. Shani, what are your thoughts?
I think a mythic piece of gear would be better for getting AOTC. Just because it's harder. You should, if it's harder, you should get a better reward.
Well, it's also a singular use. Like, you only get it once for the season because it would also encompass PvP and M+.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'd even be okay if they did like reward for all 3. Honestly, they're all different.
One for each. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying I'd be okay with it.
You don't worry that like the person who does like us M+ and AOTC, for example, would possibly be filling out 3 of 4 of their tier pieces with Mythic track gear?
Yeah, but here's
I'm not saying they should all be Mythic track either. Like, give Mythic Plus just a heroic one and give AOTC a mythic one.
I'm down with that. That sounds great, Shawnee.
But like, either way, I don't really care. I think if someone wants to take the time to, like, say if someone took the time to get 1800 rating, AOTC, and KSM, I'm like, they just spent a whole bunch of time in the game, and it would be advantageous for Blizzard to do that, so they're not buying other games and spending money other places. But yeah, that's just me. I'm like, you work more, you should get more reward.
Technique. Oh,
reward list for that.
oh,
personally.
I froze there for a second. What was that?
I wouldn't necessarily put mythic track gear on the list for just killing queen, although the difficulty level for heroic queen really does kind of warrant a better reward. But like the rare items, I feel like put the rare items on her loot table.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like just give out mythic tier gear or mythic loot for the queen. Anyway, yeah, I think a higher reward in general is better, but maybe not mythic tier stuff, and more likely like the currently set as rare or super rare items should maybe
That'd be cool. Like you automatically get a super rare item, you know?
Technique
yeah,
would like that, then it's not that rare.
or like an
That's true.
increased rare increased drop from her. Yeah.
I see some flaws in that, but I'm gonna save us the time. All I'll say is that I agree with most of it, except for the fact that I think with Valinor's idea of bumping the token going to 2500, for example, on Mythic Plus, I can't speak to the PvP difficulty, although I hear it's harder to get that rating this season. So 2500 for M Plus, I feel like was equally as challenging as getting to Queen Ansurrect Heroic killed. There are different variables, like for example, our challenge is not singular. Like I could go probably pug AOTC.
Wait,
right
Frank, you don't get the token at 2500, you get it at 2K.
No, but Valinor's recommendation was move that to 2500 and give it Mythic Track.
That would be so frustrating.
Why?
I think it's 2500 is pretty hard.
Yeah, but all of us have passed that point, and a Mythic Track gear. Okay, Shawnee's very close.
No, Shawnee's past 2500.
No. He's 24 like 80 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And that's only because of what we'll talk about. Yeah, we'll pug season.
Reindeer games.
But what I'm saying is like 2500 for a myth track, and again, it's a one time. You get one for the season, right? Because you wouldn't get one for both. Feels like the amount of energy I'd had to pour into getting us to Queen Ansurrect Heroic.
Yeah, okay. I understand now, and I think that sounds good. I do want that.
The only reason I'm concerned about doing that though would be you could buy AOTC kills.
You can technically buy 2500.
That's harder to buy though. Like it's a lot harder to buy that.
It is a lot harder to buy.
I mean, it just costs more money. That's it.
But that is harder.
I mean,
harder.
I have to carry 8 times versus 1 time. Does that make sense? Like that's my philosophy.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I guess I don't find it that much harder because like for the people that pay for that stuff all the time, they don't care about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's also significantly. I mean, you can just look at the prices of like getting carried in a key. Like it's so much harder to carry and time the key somebody who's just not pulling any weight, as opposed to in raid it's just one person.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't even know how people buy keys. Like, bro, it must be so prohibitively expensive.
I don't know.
It is.
I won't say I've sold keys, but
it is for 2500 IO. It's expensive.
Yeah, but when we were playing around with selling keys, we were selling like 5s and shit. Like
there's a Discord for selling keys, and they have
me and Frank had a whole arc with that. But like to time a key, like right now, to like time a 10, let's say people want their portal, like you're gonna have one person who's doing nothing and still time the key.
Well,
like
not nothing. They'd be doing like 20%.
Hard.
Maybe.
But they don't have to do something, right? Like because they're paying for it. If I were paying for it, I wouldn't do nothing.
I think they have to do something like survive, because otherwise, if they don't, every 15 seconds is knocked off.
No, I'm parking right at the entrance.
Anyways, let's not divulge too much of that. But I do. Shawnee, you're right to a degree. Scrappy, you're right to a degree. But
thank you. Okay, we can move on then.
Okay.
Everyone's right.
Let's wrap it up. Again,
everyone's right.
Goddamn 2 hours episodes are.
I'm saying it's gonna be a short episode. You keep.
I didn't say it I didn't say it to them. I said it to you.
I know. Well,
MythicDungeonLeague.com. Go to get our Discord channel. Go to get our Twitch, which we stream right now Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and soon to be Friday and Saturdays, maybe depending on how we push our keys. And then of course you can follow us. You can follow us on League Mythic through Twitter. I will never call it X. And please come and join us. Now, I say all that please come and join us with Posy Vibes. Please come and join us to talk about how much you love your spec, even though there might be things you want to improve upon it. Because as we want to say from this whole episode and 2 hours worth of talking is everything is for the most part viable, right? 99% of the time it is okay to be the Beastmaster. It's okay to be the Windwalker or the Mistweaver. You don't have to worry about exploiting the bugs that are there because it's not making it 100% more effective, right? Or maybe it isn't.
Unless
I just don't
you
know.
want like a high IO, in which case play a different race.
No,
class.
but even then,
Right.
Stop undermining the whole vote.
high IO, defined as, let's say, the top. Scrap, you're the top 1% of your spec, right?
Yes.
Is
top
attainable.
1 out of 3.
You've proven it's attainable, and there's still room to improve. We could argue, right?
100%.
So, please just be more posy. I don't want to be negative about the negativity, right? Like it's driving me to the point where Shani and I have talked about, like, is this sustainable for me? I don't want to.
Is this a good video game?
I'll put it this way. I don't want to avoid going into Discord, right? I don't want that. And I say that as selfishly, but I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. I know a lot of people in our area sometimes feel the same way, just based on what's happening inside with discussions of, I don't even know anymore. So we love you all. Please get some rest. Enjoy 11.0.5. We have a lot to talk about next week where we will bring back the original topic we were so excited about talking about. Until then, thank you very much for watching. We will see you then. Take care. No boop from Technique.